Everyone ready?
And away we go.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this Board of Supervisor meeting to order. The date is June 29th. The time is 9:03 a.m. I'm going to ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask our OES Director, Richard Murdoch, to lead us, and then please remain standing for an invocation from Pastor Anthony Vargas from the Center Church.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Lord, thank you for just the opportunity to conduct the business for the well-being of the communities, and I just ask that you would give wisdom to each of the board of directors, and also for each person that's here today that's representative of their communities and individuals that are here for the concern of the well-being of the neighbors and families that they represent. And so I just pray that in everything that we do, that we would conduct ourselves in such a way that would be beneficial for the individuals that we are representing. I pray that you would continue to be with the board of directors as they collaborate and they discuss some of the things that they will hear today, and pray not only for their wisdom and guidance and decision making, but also that you would be with their families, and pray that in the busyness of everything that you would give them rest so that they could be clear when making decisions regarding the well-being of the communities. And so we thank you for this day, and we ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Richard. So we're going to move on to item 3, which are presentations. This is always a great day. We do this a couple times a year where we honor 25 and 30-year service awards for Stanislaus County employees. And today we're going to start out with the 25-year, and it's going to be Behavioral Health and Recovery Services. So who's going to be presenting? Ruben.
All right, good morning. Ruben Imperial here. I'm the Director for Behavioral Health and Recovery Services, and I'm here to present the Service Award for 25 years to Roxanne Body. And I'm going to read it a little bit. We're going to share a little bit about her career at BHRS. So Roxanne began her career with BHRS in 1996, working as a clinical service technician with drug and alcohol program. At that point, it was called Reality, and a really good name for a drug and alcohol program. It is now known as Stanislaus Recovery Center, and ultimately was promoted to a behavioral health specialist, providing case management and employment services for the department. Most recently, in the last 9 years, she has worked as an investigator in BHRS Conservatorship Investigations Office. In this role, Roxanne evaluates individuals to determine their eligibility for conservatorship, which includes making recommendations to the courts on whether to initiate or to maintain a conservatorship. And in our role, and in our community right now, that's a pretty substantive role with all the various challenges that we are facing in our community. Roxanne has acknowledged that mental health services in our community have grown and expanded in the community, and she states that she is proud to be part of Behavioral Health and Recovery Services. So on behalf of BHRS and the county, we thank you for your service, and I'd like to share a few words.
Thank you.
Most recently, in the last 9 years, she has
Well, hi. So my name is Roxanne Body, and I've been with the county 25 years, and for some reason I thought this meeting was going to take place through Zoom, and then I found out this morning that it's going to be in person. So I'm glad I was able to make it. But like I said, I've been with the county for 25 years, and at first I just thought, I just felt, well, it was just another year. I didn't realize the significance of having worked for 25 years for a county agency that provides such a important role in our community. And I'm just, I'm very grateful that being recognized, not just by BHRS, but being here this morning in front of you, at the, Board of Supervisors. So I'm very grateful, and, I hope to one day retire from the county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up. So I only have to say a couple of things, and it'll pretty much carry on through. But we have 165 years in 7 employees, I think. I just added up 165 years of experience, and I can tell you the county doesn't exist without its employees. It's pretty simple, and now today, post-COVID, brought the board down, so we're all going to take pictures together, so you don't have to stand back right there. But Roxanne, on behalf of the board, I can say this over and over and over again to all the employees, but people who put in 25 years have made it a career. Obviously, they chose this as a career path. Maybe they could have done something elsewhere, that maybe they could have made more money, but people are so passionate that they tend to make a career here at the county. So we appreciate everything, and on behalf of the board, again, we have this certificate to present to you. And board, come on up here, let's take a picture. Tom? Yeah. Okay, now you gotta stand in front. Move in here.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Beatrice has another service award. I'm going to ask Jennifer Marsh to please come up. Jennifer began her career with BHRS in 1996, working as an account clerk in the business office, and had other roles within the county as well. But in March 2009 was promoted to the Substance Use Education and Prevention Coordinator. Jennifer's role with BHRS is unique because her programs are directed towards youth and others in our community that have not had a mental illness or a substance use diagnosis, with the aim of educating and preventing youth from ever having to enter the doors of one of our treatment programs. There's lots that our prevention programs do, but Jennifer has had leadership in a few key programs and efforts, and I want to share them with you today. One is what's called the Committed Program. It's been implemented in 4 school districts in our county and is aimed at building partnerships for healthy youth development. The program is unique, I think, because it focuses on 6 modules of chemical health, mood and mindset, character, sleep, and nutrition, training and recovery, and this is all done at the high school level. So these youth are being trained and educated at that level in high school. Before COVID hit us, she was also led efforts to conduct an opioid summit, and it was attended by well over 500 people. I remember me and Jody walked over, and we were thinking we were just going to attend a little workshop or something. We walked in, the whole center plaza was full. And Jennifer and her team had done a really good job of turning out the community to that event. And it was in response to the ongoing opiate crisis, and its purpose was to raise community awareness on opioid use and misuse, and the event did that. One of my favorites was Drop the Drugs. Jennifer was also co-founded the Drop the Drugs program in partnership with law enforcement in 2009. The medication take-back program started a year before the DEA's national take-backs began and has grown to a permanent disposal program in addition to the biannual take-back events. Stanislaus has collected over 20,000 pounds of unused medication since the program inception, preventing their potential diversion for misuse and abuse. One of my favorite stories about this program is when she started it, she presented it to her supervisor, and her supervisor says, "No, it's not a good idea, it'll never work. No, we're not going to do it." But she's pretty persistent, so she ended up getting the program through, and they started it, and it just became a really huge success. The reason why I know that program and that story, because I was a supervisor. So Jennifer has developed many community partnerships and is always willing and ready to help in other areas when needed, and it is well known that she loves what she does in her work life, and it's not just a job for Jennifer, and we all know that. So congratulations, Jennifer, and we'd like for you to share a few words.
Yeah, I love that story too. Ruben and I joke on a regular basis about how he's like, no, really? No, I don't think that's a good idea. But he still supported me in it after a little bit of convincing. But here we are today. So it's been an honor to serve Stanislaus County, and even more of an honor to work alongside of some just amazing people. Some of my team is here, and love all of you. And the work that we do is important. I really feel like we're making a difference every day, and that's what drives us. And Ruben's actually the one that recruited me to prevention. I came over as an analyst under him and have never left. It's where I belong, and it's where my passion is, working with young people, and it's amazing work. So prevention rocks.
Thank you.
So I heard, congratulations. I heard two things: innovative and persistent, right? Someone tells you no, you come up with an idea, someone tells you no, you don't take it as the final answer. So I love, come on up here, board. So again, on behalf of the board, we so much appreciate it. I want everyone to understand that these aren't the only 25-year employees. Some people just, I sign lots of certificates, and a lot of people don't want to come up here, but we think this is the most important way of honoring our employees is by coming in, so we encourage it. So Jennifer, I need you to stand in front of us, and we're going to scooch in a little bit. Thanks, Jennifer.
It's my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce Sophia Mott, one of the attorneys in my office. Sophia is a mother of two and married to Danny Mejia, a deputy with the sheriff's office. So your family has a tradition of public service. Interesting thing about Sophia is she was born in Canada and moved to California at the age of 13. And she graduated from Palo Alto High School in 1984. And if you guys know me, I like to place things with respect to songs that were on the radio at the time. And the most popular song then was When Doves Cry. Prince, right? 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 It helps you place things in your mind, right? Oh man, that was a while ago. All right, so she graduated from UC Santa Cruz in 1988. The most popular song then was Faith by George Michael. Gotta have faith. Yeah, and probably apropos, right? You got a lot of faith in your future. And what's interesting is that we both went to Loyola Marymount in Los Angeles, and you just a few years before me. She graduated from Loyola in 1993, and at that time, I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that by Meatloaf. All right. Admitted to practice law in the state of California in the same year, in 1993, and started at the Modesto, our Stanislaus Public Defender's Office in 1995 as a contract employee, then became a full-time employee as a Deputy Public Defender in 1996. With several assignments with the Public Defender's Office, including criminal cases, juvenile dependency, and delinquency cases. And in 1995, the most popular song was You Ought to Know by Alanis Morissette, which is kind of disturbing, and for men in that year, made us look over our shoulder. We stole her in 2019 from the Public Defender's Office, and she handles dependency cases. One of the biggest changes she has noticed is how much busier the city of Modesto is since she started. And she remembered when she came to her interview, it seemed like Modesto was so quiet you didn't even have to look both ways to cross the street. So things have changed. Despite that quiet nature, or maybe because of it, she stayed with us and now considers Modesto her second home. And Sophia, what's interesting about Sophia is she's always balanced. She maintains a good sense of humor and is always poised. Sophia, we're lucky to have you on our team. And though you have a mountain of work to do each day, you always do it with a smile and always do an excellent job. So, thank you. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. Well, it's been an honor and a privilege for me to serve the people of this community all these years. It's something that I'm very, very proud of in my life. I really look forward to many more years of service. And when I was in law school, when I was in law school, I knew I wanted to dedicate my career to public service. And I feel very lucky and blessed to have been able to accomplish that goal here in this community and in Stanislaus County. So thank you very much. Thank you, Tom.
So the passion comes through again, the passion for service. I love to see it. And then you were working in the public defender's office with dependency, right, with children. So and criminal courts. Okay, younger folks came over to the dark side, county council, as we like to say. It's a much broader topic, but you're still in your concentration, which is great to hear. I've always had folks that come over to the county council's office say it's a easier atmosphere, but it's a harder atmosphere because we're always trying to keep the 5 board members out of trouble. Right, you spend all your time. But we appreciate your service. Again, this was 75 years. You see in 10 minutes, 75 years of service. And Sophia said she's going to work some more, which is just like music to my ear. That was spontaneous applause. So appreciate all you've done, for sure. Come on up. I'm going to have you step forward. A little bit.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. This morning I have the pleasure of bringing up Deputy Brett Silvera. So Brett has been with the county for 30 years. He started the same month that Sheriff Les Weidman started, my predecessor's predecessor. So he is on his 3rd sheriff, 4th if you count Sheriff Putoff. So on his 4th sheriff, and he has worked in our custodial facilities as an adult detention deputy, but he only really worked there for the first 14 years of his career. For the last 16 years, he has been assigned out to PAL, the Police Activities League, where he has worked serving the children of Stanislaus County. And it's interesting because for at least 2 or 3 of the folks who have been up here today, we've talked about the kids and everything that they have done for our youth. And Brett has been extremely dedicated and instrumental in making PAL what it is today, along with the team that is out there. And do you even have a sense of how many thousands upon thousands of kids you've served in the time that you've been with PAL?
Well, we serve about 10,000 a month, so
yeah, 12 times 16, 12 months times 16 years times 10,000. I'm the sheriff, so I can't do that in my head. That's why I'm the sheriff, because I can't do math. But Brett has just been incredibly dedicated and committed to not only the Stanislaus County, but the Sheriff's Office, and specifically the youth of our county. He continues to serve both at PAL and at the Sheriff's Office, and also now as a Sirius City Councilman, so service is clearly in his blood. So Brett, on behalf of Stanislaus County, the Sheriff's Office, and PAL, thank you for your incredible service to our children in our community. Thank you.
yeah, who'd ever thought I'd make it through 4 sheriffs, right? And a bunch of people in this room that are great friends and have been a huge influence on my career. I've been at PAL for 16 years, but I had some great, cool assignments before that in adult detention, and those guys over there are the reason why. Those are most of the administration from adult detention, the Sheriff's Department, and I'd be amiss if I didn't thank them for everything that they've done and everything that the Sheriff's Department has done for me in my career. So 16 years at PAL, we've grown from 80 employees to 300. We go to 53 different sites and 10,000 kids a month. So it's just huge passion of mine. It's been that way for my whole life, from when I started refereeing in high school sports when I was 18. It's been great to be able to continue serving kids in this community for all these years, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. So I appreciate everything that everybody's done for me. I have a lot of friends sitting over here that have been supported our programs and me for all these years. And I hopefully, whenever I need something or wherever Pal needs something, I know where to go and for that support. So thank you very much. It's been a great 30. And Vito, I'm still here. I don't know if I'll make 35, but I'm still working. So thank you very much.
Okay, so class of '82, we go way back. He's, although I always talk about Houston High, he was about 6 miles to the west in series, so we played sports against each other. He touched on something he does. He's been reffing a long time. If you understand or watch games, this guy could have made a career as a ref. He could be an NBA ref, and I'm not joking. He could be an NFL ref. He's totally in control of the situation. It's pretty amazing, and he gets all flustered when I say that because I see him ref from time to time, and he's exceptional because it's hard to command respect, especially from kids. He's learned it from working in adult detention, where, in detention you learn to be crafty, PAL program, all the way through. He's been a great asset for the county for 30 years. He's been a good friend for about, since probably 78 or 79. So.
Beat you in basketball, I remember that.
Yeah. So the question is, who didn't beat us in basketball, right? That's right. So anyways, again, on behalf of the board, congratulations for making it 30 years in a profession. 30 years is about a max because it's just tough on your body. And we're just excited you're going to stick around a little bit longer to continue to change lives. Appreciate it. Thanks, brother.
All right, so we have a few 30-year service awards, so I'm going to ask Maria Miko to come up. And Maria Miko is her, of course, her legal name, but we all know her as Mary Jane. So we're gonna use that if you don't mind. So Mary Jane began her career with BHRS in 1991. And for over 2 decades, she has served with compassion and very skilled dedication in our adult system of care treatment services. As a behavioral health specialist, she worked on our treatment teams with our medical staff, our clinicians, and our peer partners to provide behavioral health treatment services. In her role as a BHRS, she provides case management, rehabilitation, service coordination, and in Mary Jane's case, compassionate and persistent support for our clients. She's worked at Modesto Recovery Services, Turlock Recovery Services, Eastside Clinic Sites, which was the old names of our old treatment programs for BHRS staff here. And she's also worked in our highest levels of care, which is our full service partnership programs as well. She serves in a role that often goes unseen in our community, but as part of our treatment teams, our case managers, our behavioral health specialists, I would say are the backbone. They work with our medical staff and our clinicians, and they really are central to our treatment teams and do so much really great work. Every day she works to support BHRS clients and our community members with serious mental illness and or a substance use disorder to maintain their recovery and accomplish their treatment life goals. In 2019, Mary Jane was transferred to BHRS StanWorks program, where she serves with families participating in the Welfare to Work programs. Congratulations, Mary Jane, and we're going to ask you to say a few words as well.
Thank you. I would like to say good morning to the Board of Supervisors and to everyone. Stanislaus County is one of the best, if not the best county in the state of California. I would like to thank management my previous managers, my previous coordinators. Case management is a great career. It has given me a chance to grow professionally, and a very important aspect of my career is making a difference in the lives of clients. I would like to share my service award with my team, BHS Stunworks. Before I conclude, I would like to extend my gratitude with Mr. Kevin Panyanabong, my manager for and soon-to-be assistant director. I also would like to say thank you so much, Dr. Gold, for your support and help and believing in me. Have a wonderful day, everyone. And again, thank you.
Maria Regina, there's a cultural aspect to that. In Philippines,
I had asked the question, how'd you get the name Mary Jane as a...
Okay. So I migrated from the Philippines more than 30 years ago. So during my time, most of the girls who were born were given a name of Maria because I was raised Catholic. And so my older brother thought that Maria Regina, I have two first names, Maria Regina is a long name. So he thought of giving me a nickname, Mary Jane. And when I started working for the county, my clients said that they can remember me. I mean, they will remember me better if they say the word Mary Jane versus Maria Regina, and that's how I got the name Mary Jane. Yes, thank you.
I absolutely love it. And again, and so you were immigrated or your parents?
Well, first my parents.
First your parents.
Yes,
Okay.
my whole family.
There's the work ethic right there. And I'm telling you, the folks that came, they built America, they made America the greatest generation, folks. So again, on behalf of the board, so much appreciate everything you've done, the 30 years. And did you say you were going to stick around a little longer?
Absolutely.
We are batting 100% today. This is outstanding. Come on up, board. Congratulations, Mary Jane.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mary
Thank
Jane.
you.
Congratulations.
I'd like to invite Delane Oliva up now. Delane Oliva began her career with BHRS in November of 1990 as an extra help clerk 2 in the file room at CSA, and obtained a full-time account clerk 2 position at the assessor's office in February of 91. She's an excellent example of how hard work, dedication, and continuous learning can lead to a rewarding career pathway in public services here at Stanislaus County. Over the years, Delane has served in a variety of roles and worked her way up to an account clerk 3, staff services manager, staff services coordinator, manager 2, and is currently leading our BHRS contracts team as a manager 3. Delane's staff have shared that they feel lucky and honored to have her as a leader and that she is a vital part of the organization. She contributes a wealth of knowledge and history to the department that staff access on a regular basis, including myself. We all lovingly refer to her as the Oracle of Contracts because she seems to have an answer to whatever difficult situation arises. Delane's fellow managers appreciate her can-do attitude, ability to juggle competing priorities, and commitment to doing whatever it takes for the good of the team and the department as a whole. Her supervisors share that Delane is reliable day in and day out, and that when she says she will handle it, she follows through. Even after 30 years of service, Delane still has a strong desire to continue to grow and learn, and we look forward to seeing her continue to shine over the years to come here at BHRS. Congratulations, Delane, and we're going to ask you to share a few words as well.
So, a little over 30 years ago, I had some family friends that were county employees, and they are the ones that told me, go to the county downtown, this is when it was on H Street, go find HR and fill out these little yellow cards. Back then. So anyway, so that started my journey with the county. I did start extra help because everybody's like, get your foot in the door. They always lead to full-time positions. And then once I accepted my extra help position, we had a hiring freeze. So, but then some lists came around, and then I did get hired permanently. So I just am grateful for those people in my life that pointed me in the right direction. I am very much a structured and person that likes stability. So the county has offered that to me, and I have been able to take advantage of moving around to different departments, but still being under the umbrella of Stanislaus County and having that support and stability of being in the county family. I have worked with a lot of people over the years and learned many things from people, some things that I have brought with me throughout my journey, most of them positive, a few negative, but I also was able to say, okay, that's what I don't want to do. So now I am leading a team of some wonderful people, and the whole department is very supportive, and I am just glad to still be here after 30 years. Who knew?
Not that this is Jeopardy, but 4 of the 6 people we've honored today for essentially being able to, some longevity, come out of behavioral health and recovery services. And that's not the biggest department. Why do you think that is?
It's the people. It's the people. It's the people that we work with, and the support and that we all have for each other.
Ruben was expecting you to say it's because of Ruben. Just so you know. It's implied. It's the people you work with. And I see there's a heck of a turnout today from Behavioral Health and Recovery Services. So, again, Delane, on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, I'm in awe. This is 90 years. Remember, there was 75 in the first 3, and now there's another 90 years of service right here. Stunning. If it wasn't for leaders like all of you and yourself, it would be tough for the new people, right? We're trying to train people up, give them life experience on their own, let people fall down once in a while, but also there's got to be someone there to point them in the right direction and train them. So we appreciate that on behalf of the Board of Supervisors. Come on up and we'll take a quick picture. And did you say, because I didn't hear you say, are you sticking around a little while?
I am. I have a teenager, so I need to.
A teenager. So did you cheat when you put in your initial application and say you were
I did not.
18?
I did not.
I got you to step forward because we're going to have to scooch in here. There we go. Perfect. I always believe we're coming. We're working on it. Knock, knock. Okay. I always believe that this is a pittance of what we should do for people who stick around for 25 or 30 years. So I'm going to make a motion that we declare this a national holiday. But we appreciate everything. Again, 165 years, and we give them 35 minutes to honor them. isn't enough. And I hope that they understand the appreciation from the Board of Supervisors and the CEO and department heads and all those folks that they work with and for. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the public comment period. Public comment period is an opportunity to speak on anything that is not on today's posted agenda. Please keep your comments to 5 minutes. And I have one speaker, Maggie Countryman. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hold on 1 second. Okay.
Nice try. I'm Maggie Countryman. Let me introduce myself. I worked for the county as a legal 4. So I am qualified to go over the discovery that Mr. Graywall brought to you. I get upset when I come here because I don't know who's lying. Now, Mr. Bowe started crying when I called him yesterday. There's no crying in politics, okay? You don't get to cry. They've been ghosting me with a second appeal for several years. When we came here to appeal the 2-story building, we were not talking to you about the building. We didn't give about your building. We were talking about our property. 3 pieces of property that I own are underneath this building. So we weren't talking about the building. We were talking about how it affects our property. Anyone? Any eye contact at all? We were talking also about our neighbor's property, because the first thing my brother-in-law said was my neighbors next door couldn't have a party because of the interference from this building. My neighbor wrote you a letter saying that I couldn't use my pool in 2012 for a whole year because he sat on the side of the building and harassed the neighbors. During the BZA hearings, every word was a lie. Existing, perjury, wasn't existing, not lawfully. This is a piece, Mr. Bowe started crying because he said Mr. Hayes had nothing to do with this. Now, the building inspector and our hearing officer, who was the contract chief building official, came to me and said management issued this. He didn't. Now, if Mr. Murphy's application failed, was denied, then it wasn't issued. There's no permit for the owners of that property. Okay? And there's no permit from building safety. So Mr. Hayes' job description is to correctly record legislation. And the reason Mr. Bowe started crying is because I told him who we'd been before. Our appeal had been recorded with the clerk recorder. It's a county office. And the other, let's see, was our BZA was recorded by the recording secretary of the city of Modesto. Those are 2 recordings that Mr. Hayes ignored and executed a permit after September 26th, after the building was ordered removed. Now, I'm not telling you anything. When I came to the podium, because there's nothing attached to the 11, 12, 13 meeting, which you took the video off, which is nice. That's sweet. There's nothing attached to it. So nothing happened after 9/26, after that building was ordered removed. And yet Mr. Hayes did not record that legislation. Now, so you left 1,400 square foot building that was ordered removed in our neighborhood. And there's no explanation of why that was done. So all I wanted to say is now I know what I'm telling a judge, and now I know, you know, what your clerks know. After a revocation hearing, there is no appeal. Do you have any questions for me regarding the discovery and the appeal?
Nope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Please come on up. Well, that's for consent item.
No. I put two. One is public comment, the other one
Okay.
is consent to take away the consent item B15.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I want to explain to you the Latino word. Latino is a language, not ethnicity or race. It's a language from Rome, the old language from Rome, in the middle of the cities of Rome. It's the Latino. So we are not race Latino, because it's a language. The other one is why the white people don't have ethnicity. The white people supposed to have ethnicity, come from French, Italians, Germans. That's the ethnicity group. So the question is, who is who in this county sometimes, on this city? The other one is the language or the phrase or the word Hispanic. We are not from Spain. The Spain is a country, not ethnicity, not a race. So it's very confusing when the country or the Department of the Census call us Latinos or Hispanics. We are not. So it's very confusing when the statistics come in, like in this case of this county. We don't have too many Latinos in this county, very few. We are not in San Francisco. San Francisco, we have a lot of so-called Latinos. They're supposed to be Latino from Rome. It's a word, not a race. And here's Mexican or Mexican American. And the reports that you do constantly never mention the Mexican and Mexican American specific in the workforce. So it's very contradicted. Who really is working in this county? And you know Mr. Vito Chisa and you farming. It's only calling the farm workers. But never mention who is the farm workers. Farm workers is the Mexicans or Mexican American. So it's very not realistic how the reports come into this county, into where the money is coming, into who, and for who. So if the county have over 50% Mexican Americans, so-called Latinos, we're supposed to have a good chunk of money, but that not happen. From one reason or another, disappear through the process. Even we not be identified in the regional plan of the workforce. Only mention one time the statistic of the demographic, say Hispanics. And the race is white mostly, and the Hispanics is 45%. The Hispanic is not racist, so-called ethnicity. So even that is very confusing. At the same time, we are not receiving in the projects and programs under the Labor Department the money is supposed to come to improve the life and quality of life of the so-called Latinos, mostly Mexican American. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Miguel. Anyone else for public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar. I had, Miguel had asked to pull B13. I think Supervisor Condit had asked to pull B6.
Yes.
And B3 and B19. Been asked to pull B19 and B3. I just wanted to comment. So what I'll do here is minus B3, B6, B13, and B19. I'll, did I? Dang it. I don't know why I keep messing this up today. I walked down there and I asked him before the meeting, and he told me, sorry, I apologize. For some reason, I had B13 written down. B15, not B13. Okay, so it'll be consent calendar minus B3, B6, B15, and B19. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move that we approve the consent calendar with the exceptions of B3, 6, 15, and 19.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so I'm going to take B6 first. I do have two speaker cards. Lorinda Fresquez, and followed by Rose Hurst will be next. You just pull that microphone down.
Yeah, sure. Good morning. My name is Leveda Fresquez. I live in the city of Newman. I retired from the county about 12 years ago from revenue recovery. And with my retirement, I decided to work for volunteer, basically. I wound up being a president of the Orristemba 50s Plus Club in Newman. It's a senior citizen club for our community, the West Side. During COVID, all meetings were dispersed. We could no longer hold our monthly meetings. And I saw a need in our community that seniors needed to. We had a food program out there where they could go to the local McConnell Center and have a lunch daily and socialize, along with our senior club that we met bi-monthly. So we had a few things going on. During COVID, though, all of this ceased. And I saw there was a need for our seniors who could no longer go out to these programs and socialize and get a daily lunch. So I volunteered to start delivering foods to a lot of our seniors in our community. And what I thought was going to be a couple of months has now been, a year and a half. But now I understand that the meal program is now going to convert back to the in-house meal session there in Newman at the McConnell Center. And they're going to stop the delivery of the volunteer program, which I started during COVID. It's great that the seniors are going to be able to go back to the McConnell Center and eat their lunches. That's great. But there's many, many seniors in our community that are unable to go out on their own. They're too ill, they're disabled, they don't drive, they have no one to help them. And we're hoping that we could find some type of funds, resources to continue this voluntary program in delivering hot meals to our seniors. They're going to stop the voluntary program. We're not going to allow it anymore in our community. And like I said, once I started this program, it started off with just a few friends, and it has escalated. Rose and I had to get an extra help because it escalated from 6 people to basically 40. And that's nothing. There's more out there. We have 3 senior citizen residential areas, apartments, and many of these people still don't know because they're confined in their apartments. They don't know there's programs out there that can help them. And if we were to be able to touch all of these people and reach them, there'd be more people, more seniors that need food brought to their homes because they cannot. They have no one to care for them. There's few that have caregivers and many that don't drive and, like I say, are disabled. And we're just hoping that somehow there can be funds. I know there's a service that was funded by Modesto out here that delivered frozen meals. These frozen meals that were also delivered once a week through Newman and different communities, I don't know if any of you have ever tasted these frozen meals. They were absolutely disgusting. You could not take 2 bites without eating them, and that's what we're delivering to the seniors. That's what they're going to propose to continue as delivery to the ones who are homebound, are these 4 or 5 frozen meals in a box, and they are absolutely disgusting. Rose may have some more to comment on this, but we're just hoping that we could find some funds. The other thing that we had looked into was when COVID started, Governor Newsom had, through FEMA, there was a program, the Great Plate, which was supposed to have contract to local restaurants and deliver restaurant quality food, 3 meals a day to the different seniors in the different communities. Great program, but it's not going to hit our area. It hit big cities, Sacramento, San Mateo, Oakland, San Francisco, LA, San Bernardino. Nothing for a rural, small Modesto, Stockton, Stanislaus County, nothing. That program is going to die out or fizzle out July 9th. Those funds were furnished through FEMA, and we're hoping that we can find something to assist a good hot home meal delivery to the seniors throughout the county.
Levada, we very much appreciate your comments. CEO.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you for being here this morning. I'll tell you, just over the last 24 hours, we have done some research on the issue that was brought to our attention, and here's how I understand it today. During COVID, we had some flexibility provided from the federal government for the 2 different types of funded senior meal programs. One is congregate meal settings, where folks come together and enjoy a meal, and the other is home delivery programs and services. We have had some flexibility. That flexibility will expire. So how we can fund these things is going to expire. It looks like the date of expiration is September 30th or around there. With that, our area agency on aging, and the director, Margie's here this morning if we have any other questions that I can't answer, they've been working with all of the different meal providers in our community to transition back now that we are able to offer congregate meal settings. And there's a lot of data to support that it is in seniors' best interest when they can come to a congregate meal site to come to that congregate meal site for fellowship and socialization and so forth. And obviously the quality of the meals is generally preferable as well. In this case, I understand we're going to provide a little more time for us to try to figure out how one community that may have a volunteer network that could deliver fresh meals, how we could possibly try to bridge that gap between now and September 30th. I do think it's important for the public watching to know that we do have a contract for senior meals in our community and for homebound seniors. There are eligibility standards. These are very specific federal standards. They are not standards that we design at the local level, but the federal government designs. We support those programs. We implement them locally. But any seniors who are homebound in our community can have nutritious food delivered to them. We just need to know who they are, and we need to work with them, and we have a whole team of folks that try to make sure that those gaps are addressed in our community. With that said, I understand that in the community of Newman, their preference is to not use the contractor that uses frozen foods, which is a common standard for senior meals programs. and their preference is to try to develop a fresh food system in Newman. If that's the case, it does require a significant number of volunteers to be able to do that. You've heard this morning, and I've also heard that Newman does have quite a cadre of volunteers. So we'll work with them, our team will, to try to figure out if we can develop a system specifically in Newman that delivers fresh food based on volunteerism. So thank you once again. I do want you to know we'll try to work something out as if we can, but I do think it's important everyone recognize we're operating in a rule structure that we do not design. It is the federal government that designs that rule structure. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate your time, and I'm hoping that it could be countywide, because there's a lot of seniors out there that need help. Thank you.
Okay. Rose?
Okay, the government, I'm taller. The government decided that my name would be Rose with a L, and that's not it. So my name is actually Rose Lee. One word, 2 capital letters. So I just wanted to clarify that first. I wanted to thank the Board of Supervisors for listening to us today. I have been named in our little town of Newman kind of volunteer extraordinary, okay? That's my middle name now, is volunteer. So I reside in Newman, and today is my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And I'm 73 years old. And last month was my husband's birthday, and he's 73 years old. So we are a couple that do community service all the time. He's a firefighter in Newman. And if you don't know, well, actually, he's now the inspector, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but he's with the fire department. And that's volunteer in Newman. They don't get paid. I don't get paid for anything I do. On Thursday, July the 1st, I've written this out, so I'm a former English teacher at MJC. So on Thursday, July 1st, 2021, we will have the privilege of going to the McConnell Center in our town to get a hot meal, sit and talk with other seniors, and play cards and games. This is great, I think, for the people to be able to get back to do that. Because what we have seen as we've delivered these meals is the isolation. So I think that's terrific. However, this will not be possible for many of the senior citizens in our town, ones that I have been delivering meals to for the past year. Many of them are homebound, can't drive, are caring for a disabled loved one, or they themselves are disabled. They cannot go to the center to have one of these meals. Instead, they will receive one of these boxes of frozen meals, and I've tasted them. They are absolutely terrible. The Older Americans Act of 2021, dated 4/22/21, under the Title III subheadings Grants for State and Community Programs on Aging, and then it goes down to nutritious services, and they're discussing congregate meals, is where they get together at the center and eat the meals, and they're hot. Which is what my husband and I could go to the McConnell Center in Newman and join these other citizens and do. Unfortunately, in that same section, the home-delivered meals, a box of 5 frozen meals, is what many of those that I've been serving will get. If meals can be served to those who are mobile enough to come to the center, why can't these same meals be delivered to the shut-ins by volunteers who do not get paid to do this? Here are some examples of the seniors on my delivery list, and I'm not naming any names, okay? Just circumstances. One had a broken back, and that person just had a second open heart surgery. The individual has no family to help and doesn't drive. Another one had a broken back and was in a wheelchair with no family to help. And that person passed before COVID did. I have one couple, the one responsible for caring for the spouse doesn't drive and can't leave the house to go get a meal for him or her. I have another couple, one has a bum knee, a broken arm, can't drive, takes care of the spouse who is bedridden. And these are just a couple of them, okay? But I want you to know that these people that are going to get frozen meals, that's who they are. These people are typical of the senior citizens that need to be delivered hot meals instead of the 5 frozen ones. I do not understand how these homebound seniors and all homebound seniors in our county, I'm saying county-wide, can be so abandoned by their county leaders. These are my questions. Would someone please explain to me how this is fair to our homebound seniors? Number 2, I would like to know exactly how and when these frozen meals will be delivered to these homebounds. I'm kind of glad to hear that revision that was given. Okay. Number 3, our Newman Crows Landing Unified School District staff, of which I'm a board member over them, worked with the county to serve hot meals before, during, and now post-COVID. Why are other school districts in our county not being encouraged to do so? I'll finish by repeating the question. Why can't these same hot meals be served at the congregate that are served at the congregate site be delivered to these people? I respectfully ask this, and I thank you for listening to me. And do you have any questions of me?
No, extraordinaire. I changed it to an E, your middle name. Extraordinaire.
Thank you.
Appreciate volunteering and helping out. That is truly great. I want to thank Supervisor Condit for bringing this to our attention.
Yeah. Again, very happy birthday to you, Rosalie.
Thank you.
And I do want to thank Leveda and yourself for showing up. I came across this while reading the agenda, and I was just alerted just because Newman was not specifically listed, but I guess that's because of the amount. It did not require board approval. But with further inquiry about the home delivery process, and I'm very happy and encouraged by the words of our CEO that we are going to start entering into, I guess, negotiations or at least conversations about continuing that. And I know I've gone out personally with Ms. Hurst and have delivered hot meals to seniors. Some are disabled, some are homebound, and I think it's just absolutely essential that we continue that program, make sure that our seniors have those services who can't, enjoy the congregate meal at the McConnell Center. So I'm very encouraged today, and thank you so much for you both showing up.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a great day.
You as well. Happy birthday.
Do you want to come up? Yeah. Director Palomino.
Good morning, Margie Palomino, Director of Aging and Veteran Services. Ms. CEO Hayes pretty much explained, the process and the funding that we get. First, and I just wanted to add that, first of all, I would love to commend the Newman seniors for what they're doing. Absolutely. I mean, that's outstanding, the volunteers that they have, the group they have. As you know, for years and years, we've been begging communities to adopt a volunteer delivery service for the seniors, because unfortunately the funding that we receive from the federal government only allows reimbursement of the meal, not delivery cost. So if every single community could get a group of volunteers, such as Newman Volunteers, and deliver fresh meals, that would be ideal. Like you said, Rosalie, for the seniors, and happy birthday, by the way. But unfortunately, we have not been able to find other communities. Again, we will definitely work with the Newman community. There are opportunities to continue as long as the senior meets the criteria for home delivery meals. They can continue to provide the service. If we work with the Newman School District and with the senior community, we can continue to do that. Not all the current 200 seniors that are receiving meals, unfortunately, most of them won't qualify, and they will be asked to attend the senior center. But at least 25% we know qualify, meet the criteria for home delivery. So we will definitely work with the senior community, with the Newman Unified District to continue at some extent the same delivery program, the fresh meal delivery program that they have accustomed to receiving, and I know they love. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Margie. Great. We'll move on to item B15 that has been pulled. And that is approval to authorize the Workforce Development Director to enter into a signed agreement, contracts modifications amendments to extend the budget year 2021-22 Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act related funds.
So we need to vote on that, I guess. Are you going to do them all at once?
Yeah, I'm going to do them all at
Okay,
once.
perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You received the copy of the information they gave you, presented to the clerk. This item is very confused item and very misunderstanding in regard to the report. One is the supposed to give or approve the contract, subcontracts to 6 agencies or groups that apply. Never mention who are the groups, and never mention the amount of money that each group going to receive. And that is not transparency, and that's not access. But the main reason behind that is the problem that we're facing in regard to the Executive Order 13985 for the advancing racial equity and support for the underserved community to the federal money and federal grants. And that's not happening. Most of the people they are receiving, or groups they are receiving the money, the board of directors are whites, very few minorities in the boards. Not too many staff are minorities, or so-called ethnicity. The other one is the San Joaquin Plan 21-24, give the order or the recommendation to the different county to have the racial equity process or ordinance for the counties to have and start to recognize the diversity, the inclusion, the access, and the ethnicity in this community. And that's not happening. Even this board don't have that policy. And it's recommended under the regional plan of the workforce. Even the workforce themselves, the board directors, never mention the is agreed or recommended by the regional. So this local board is still not recognized the ethnicity, the diversity, and the inclusion and the access, and refuse to do it. I don't know why. When the majority of the workers for work are Mexican, Mexican Americans, and minorities. In the school area or the training, from 14 to 24, the majority are Mexican, Mexican American. The dropout race, Mexican, Mexican American. The workers that work in different companies or corporations, more than 45 to 50% Mexican, Mexican American. The candidates, farm workers, 100%. So how come we are never appear in this report? Never mention the farm workers are Mexican, no, farm workers, no. You better understand where you work for and who for who is working these people, or to the agencies or corporations or companies in this county. We're still invisible in this county because of the way whoever do the report or the analysis or the data, we are not in this county. Only one time mentioned in your local workforce that we are, the majority of the residents are white and the Hispanics is 45%. The Hispanic is not race. I already explained to you. So we still not be recognized, and that data was from 2014, 2018. We still not come to the 20 census that we are more than 50% in this county, even in the workforce too. So we still not recognized. Now you see the second page of that give it to you. We already make the complaint to the board for the workforce, make the complaint under Mr. Lopez as the director. And then we send it to the state EDD department. Our next step it go to the Department of Labor. For us to be in complaint and for you guys to be in compliance of the violation of the Executive Order 13985. It's Executive Order from the government to all the agencies that receive federal money have to recognize that. And you guys never even mentioned. And then the other one is the ethnic racial policy. Still you guys refuse to do it. I don't know why. Well, I understand because what is the majority here? You guys are white, only the gentleman. So I understand the rationality and why are you still refusing to accept. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else on this item? Okay, I'm going to move to item B19. B19 is the approval of a 5-year loan agreement in the amount of $1.2 million between Stanislaus County and the Graffiti USA Classic Car Museum to purchase property located at 610 North 9th Street in Modesto. And I'll have a few comments. I was going to ask Cecil Russell if you wanted to come up and say a few words, and then I'll...
There's a number of board members for the Graffiti USA Museum that's here. We formed our group a couple of years ago, almost 3 years ago. Started working when we obtained a building on the 610, which is the old Warden's building on 9th Street. When we did that, we had an occasion to meet with Keith Boggs and worked with Keith on hopefully obtaining a loan from the county to help us finance the building and that. All of us are volunteers. The group of us also have our own personal money involved in the operation of this graffiti museum. We've had the pleasure for the last year to work with Raul Mendez and his group to help further along the process of getting the loan for this building. The premise for us asking the county for the loan is that we believe, number one, it's really about economic development and it's about tourism. We think that it's going to be a real positive thing for our county and that, and we just really appreciate the county going through the loan process with us, and hopefully we'll be successful in getting the loan. I would like to ask two other people, if you don't mind, to come up and speak on this issue for a minute. The first one would be Mr. Murphy, and then Mr. Saunders.
As long as they can be succinct. I always say that before Murphy gets up here.
Members of the Board of Supervisors, thank you for being here today, and thanks you for considering this. Cecil Russell's right on. We have a chance to invest in economic development. We also have a chance to invest in civic pride. Our story needs to be told about the stories about our community, our classic car history, and why our city is so cool, from rock and roll to classic cars, George Lucas to Star Wars, and this can do that. This will draw people from all over the world. Graffiti Summer already draws from around the planet. We are effectively the intergalactic home of American graffiti, if you want to phrase it in galaxies. So this investment will be very solid. It'll be well returned to the community. It will drive civic pride, and we're going to create something that this will make the community proud and will put us on the map for something really exciting, really positive, and something that both our citizens need to know about and the people outside our community. And this is a great time to make an investment in the future of our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris.
Morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
Mr. Haig, members of the Board of Supervisors. I'm John Sanders, Chairman of the Board of Directors of the Graffiti USA Classic Car Museum. What was just said is I certainly agree with, and I won't repeat that. I'm going to add just this. The support that we have had from the community, not just Modesto, the county and beyond, has been amazing. We continually have people call us. Occasionally they'll see somebody working at the museum and they'll stop and want to walk through it. I know that most, if not all of you, have walked through it. You've seen our blank walls, which are quickly becoming with some meaning rather than blank walls, thankfully. But the support that the community is giving to this and how thankful they are that through your help this is going to happen. It's been going on for, the hope for this has been going on for a long, long time. Cecil and Chris, I think, go back to, I'll say 15 years or so, trying to make this happen. Others have done so. And with your help, this museum is coming alive. And I want to reemphasize once more that because of the people that just stop in and say hello, or that call or can contact us on our internet sources, we know that this is on the right track. We know that it's going to get really good support from the community. We had somebody about a week ago, they arranged ahead of time from where there were farmers basically from Wisconsin, and they knew about it, they wanted to see it. So quite amazing. And we thank each of you for your support in making this come. And I also need to put a big shout out to Keith Boggs, who really was a big supporter of ours from the get-go. So we thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else? A quick comment for myself. As you probably all know, anyone that knew former Supervisor Jim DeMartini, this was a passion of his. Cars, he had quite a car collection. I think he's probably still going to participate with cars, even though he's not in the area anymore. But it kind of set off this forward thinking with meetings with Cecil, Chris, and Craig also, and then Keith Boggs, again a passion of his. He's the one that brought this forward some time ago. He's no longer around. Kelly Cavallo, raise your hand. She's taken over from the CEO's office. A big shout out to her, because between COVID and all types of issues, it's been very difficult to bring this forward in an expedited manner, to say the least. And it wasn't always the county's issue. Sometimes it was issues on site. But again, working together, this will be another anchor in downtown Modesto. I think it's fantastic bringing people from out of town. Those are the most important types of things you want to present, where you bring outside money into your county, whether it's TOT, sales tax, children's museums, because they're just great opportunities. So very excited about this. I don't see any issue with it. I'm going to look left and right. Okay, so I'm going to move on, but thank you very much for coming in today. The last thing was item B3. I had just asked to pull this. This is the California Forensic Medical Group. It's an extension on the contract. California Forensic Medical Group does all of our medical intake in the jails, also at our juvenile justice facility. There we go. I always want to say juvie. But it's an important aspect, and they do a really good job for us. It's an extension. What I like to point out, the only reason I pulled it, is that it costs us about $1.2 million every single month on this contract. And they're doing a great work for it. They're earning every penny. But it is an expensive contract. I think it's our largest outside vendor contract in the county. But if you think about it, it's about $15 million a year. But again, a necessary component of owning facilities, lock facilities. So again, I don't have any problem with it. I just think the taxpayers, it's always good for them to understand when you're spending that kind of general fund money, general fund money, it's important that they recognize that. So with that comment, now we have items B3, B6, B15, and B19.
Make a motion to approve those items.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
A second. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for coming in. To all of you. Okay, we have one public hearing Public hearing to consider adjustments to the Stanislaus County franchise maximum base rates for solid waste collection services and environmental resources. Patrick Kavanaugh and Mandeep Dillon will be presenting.
Good morning, members of the board, Chairman Chiesa, members of the board, CEO Hayes, County Council Bose. I am Patrick Kavanaugh, the Interim Director of Environmental Resources. Along with me are Mandeep Dillon, Assistant Director, and then Will Richards, Manager with the office. Today we'll be presenting the proposed maximum refuse collection rates for fiscal year 2021-2022. The unincorporated area of Stanislaus County is broken into 4 franchise areas. Each franchise area has a mixture of residential, commercial, and drop box customers and are served by one of 3 franchise haulers. Franchise haulers have exclusive rights to the residential and commercial accounts in exchange for a franchise fee. The county retains the ability to regulate the haulers and sets maximum rates that can be charged. The board also sets the franchise maximum haul rates for drop box customers. This map depicts the 4 franchise areas that are covered by the 3 haulers. Bertolotti services Area 1, which includes the communities of Salida, Keys, Crows Landing, Graceland, and Wesley. Jilton services Area 2, which includes the communities of Knights Ferry and Valley Home, the airport neighborhood and unincorporated areas of West Modesto. And Turlock Scavenger covers Area 3, which includes Denair, Empire, Hickman, and LaGrange, and Area 4, which includes pockets of the unincorporated areas of the city of Turlock. In 2008, the board adopted a refuse rates adjustment process. As outlined in this process, every 5 years, a cost-based adjustment method is used to set new base rates. For the next 4 consecutive years after, these rates may only be adjusted by a change in a series of consumer price indexes or indices. Base rates were last adopted on June 26, 2018, with an effective date of July 1, 2018, and we're now in the 3rd year of 4 consecutive index-based adjustments. With that, I'll pass it over to Mandeep, who will dive deeper into our proposed rates.
So this slide shows the components of the rate structure. Our annual adjustment to the rate is based on year-over-year average changes to the consumer and price indices tied to these individual components. These components then roll up to a single year overall increase or decrease in the rate. So I'll briefly go over the component real quick. Labor component is increasing by 1.63%. Index-based change to the fuel component is a 14.37% decrease. However, fuel is a minor component in relation to the other components of the rate structure. So it didn't make much of a difference in the overall rates. Collections, which is the largest component, will increase by 1.57%. The next one is Fink Road landfill disposal component, which will increase by 3.70% for the change in the per ton rate at the landfill. Stanislaus resource recovery component, also known as waste to energy facility, will increase by 1.56% for the change in per ton rate at the waste to energy facility. Transfer fee component will increase by 1.63%. Interest component, which is also a very minor component in relation to the overall components, will decrease by 35.31%. And there's no change to the franchise fee component, and there are no other fee components currently. So the roll-up of these component changes shown on the previous slide means that for the residential services, the rate increases are in the range of 0.61% to 1.29%. Of the total 25,300 customers for this service, Area 1 customers will see a 1% increase. Area 2 will see 0.61% increase. Area 3 will see a 1.29% increase. Area 4 will see 1.23%. So then for the 90-gallon cart service, to put it in perspective, which is the most common service in the 4 areas, the average monthly increase will be 26 cents per month. Area 1 will see a 28 cents per month increase, Area 2 14 cents, Area 3 34 cents, and Area 4 30 cents. The proposed rates will be effective July 1, 2021, and this is the last time we will see the rates this low. The state mandated organics recycling regulation pursuant to Senate Bill 1383 will take effect on January 1, 2022, so there will be a significant increase in the rates when the organics services are implemented. We have a few slides later in the presentation on this subject. For the commercial rates, the increases are in the range of 0.7% to 1.27% of the total 3,500 commercial bins in service. 40% of them customers will see 0.96% increase. 22% of the customers of these bins will see 0.70% increase. 25% will see 1.04% increase, and 13% will see 1.27% increase. To put it in perspective, so for the basic commercial service, the most common one, service of 2-yard bin collected once per week, the average increase is 90 cents per month. For Area 1, it is 97 cents, Area 2, 66 cents, Area 3, 87 cents, Area 4, $1.09, for an average of 90 cents increase per month. So before I hand over the presentation to our solid waste manager, Will Richards, I do want to acknowledge 2 staff here present, Fidelis Gaines and Kathleen Espinoza. Fidelis is instrumental in putting all this rates and doing all the financial number calculating to give us this presentation today. So I thank her. Thank you. I'll now hand over presentation to Will Richards, who will go over the Dropbox rates, SB 1383, and staff recommendations.
Thank you, Mandeep. Good morning, Chairman Chiesa, members of the board, CEO Hayes, and County Council Bose. The county also sets the haul charges for the Dropbox service. Disposal, transfer, and franchise fees are billed to the customer directly as part of the service charge. In this Dropbox rate, 69% of the customers will see a 0.67% increase, 15% will see a 0.16% decrease in their rate, 10% of customers will see a 0.59% increase, and 6% of customers will see a 0.57% increase. It's broken down by the 20 to 29-yard Dropbox hauls. The Bertolotti customers in Area 1 will see their rate increase by $1.55 to $232.66. Jilton customers in Area 2 will see their rate decrease by 37 cents to $230.08. Turlock scavenger customers in Area 3 will see their rate increase by $1.30 to $224.27. And Turlock scavenger customers in Area 4 will see their rate increase by $1.15 to $204.95. And touching back on SB 1383, in the coming months, the department will be working to implement a new collection program that requires us to be compliant with Senate Bill 1383. This is the most significant waste reduction mandate in the last 30 years since AB 939 in about 1990. The 2020 target that we had set was to reduce our organic waste disposal from the 2014 levels by 50%. The target will be increasing in 2025 to reduce organic waste disposal by 75%, as well as increasing edible food recovery by 20%. And part of the bill is that it requires a compliant collection service to be implemented by January 1, 2022 in order to meet these mandates. And the staff are currently working with the franchise haulers on the implementation process. The department plans to return to the Board of Supervisors in the fall of 2021 to present adjustments to the Stanislaus County's franchise maximum rates for solid waste collection services to comply with the mandated regulations brought about by SB 1383. As of now, the new service is intended to be implemented by January 1, 2022. And so the staff recommendations for today are to conduct a public hearing to consider the adjustments to the Stanislaus County franchise maximum rates for solid waste collection services, and to approve the recommended Stanislaus County franchise maximum rates for refuse collection services in franchise areas 1, 2, 3, and 4. Do you have any questions from the staff?
Do we have any questions of staff? There's going to be a lot more conversation on rates on a go-forward basis. I know you tried to tease it up, but I don't think people will understand as we go through and decide if we're going to a 2-can or 3-can system, how that will impact, especially out in the rural areas. So, as a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Anyone, please step forward if you want to comment. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back for comments or action.
I'll just real quick here. First, thank you guys for going through all this. Patrick, thank you for stepping up as you have here at DER and taking over on short notice here. So we appreciate all you're doing. Always impressed by the formula that we do here. You know, I know when I first came on board here and looked through this and saw how the effort that we go through to really make sure that this is fair, not only for the ratepayers, you know, as we look at these increases, but also for the haulers to make sure that they're able to make a profit and continue in business. And so it's just a great formula. We have the components of it, everything that we go through to make sure we come to a number that we think is justified. And I just want to thank you guys for all of that. And then just last is, as you guys made reference to, as Vito made reference to, you know, this is the beginning of the end as far as, you know, small adjustments here, what's going to come as a result of this SB 1383. And I know even out in Salida for years we've been wanting to get these second cans, but I always say be careful what you wish for. And here we go. We're going to get these second cans. We're going to get these additional waste disposal possibilities for the. But it's not going to come cheap, and it's going to hurt a lot of people. So it'll be interesting to see how we do. And I know we have a lot of great things that we're working on here. Recent meetings that we've had that we're working on with some of the carriers and trying to figure out ways to make this more efficient, not only in our county, but maybe trying to work with other cities too, as they struggle with this themselves. So I appreciate all the hard work you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation and also the previous briefing. It's very beneficial to understand this complex issue. I did just have a couple questions just for clarification. Could you speak to some of the modifications these haulers have to make in order to keep up with the state mandate and the increase? I know that they have to do some vehicle updates, is that correct? If you could just speak and clarify some of those things and challenges that they're facing due to the state mandate, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, I'll start off with some of them. For one, you know, they have to get new equipment, new trucks, new carts, and the significant investment to, you know, up to increase the services from right now 1 cart to, you know, a 3 cart or maybe even a 2 cart. So that is, you know, sort of in the works right now with the haulers.
And because of the mandate, they're having to make those modifications, which are driving up the fees.
Yeah, you know, getting new equipment, increasing their fleets.
And there's no buy-in from the state. This is just a pure unfunded mandate, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's a state mandated past few years ago. Implementation is now coming up. So yeah, it has to be funded by the consumer, by the fee.
By local municipalities. Yeah, by us, by the taxpayers.
Yeah.
Do you foresee at all any cost-saving options in the future moving forward? I mean, I know that obviously I don't expect you to have a specific answer today, but if we can just continue trying to be creative and look outside the box to try to bring down costs, whether it's in other areas of our government, to offset these costs moving forward. Just because people, as we all know, we are so burdened with the cost of living nowadays.
Right.
And with our services and our fees increasing, we don't want to decrease our quality of service, but we also want to make sure that our folks who are just making it ends meet day by day, that they are also trying to be looked out by us, the government.
Yeah, so it's so tied into inflation vectors, difficult to say. One way would be to, maybe shared services where it could be possible.
Okay.
For certain consumers that, maybe.
What would shared services look like? Or in
The way we have it now, it's under a special arrangement between two neighbors where, one pays the bill. So it's very informal that way.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I appreciate it. And thank you so much for your hard work. And let's just continue having these conversations. But really appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Thank you, Supervisor.
Will, thank you for shouting out to your staff who are doing all the work. I love that, for sure. Okay, if there's no other comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to accept staff recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion.
And I will make a second.
And a second, all right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion, I was going to say motion carries 4-0. That was good. Motion carries 5-0.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
We did have another public hearing. It's been canceled. That's 6-2 was the cancellation of a public hearing for the Planning Commission's recommendation of approval of a cannabis application. So we'll be moving on to a discussion item, item 7-1, authorization to award the second release of the California Emergency Solutions Grants, Corona Act Relief, Economic Stimulus Act Round 2 allocation funding recommendations from Planning and Community Development. Angela Freitas and Anna San Nicolas will be presenting.
Good morning, Chairman Case and members of the board, Mr. Hayes and Mr. Bose. I'm Angela Freitas, the Director of Planning and Community Development, and with me is Anna San Nicolas, the Department's Community Development Manager. So this morning, we are presenting to you the request for authorization to award the second release of the California Emergency Solution Grants, California ESG CARES Act Round 2 funding. There have been 2 rounds of emergency solution grant funding released by the California Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD. Round 1 was released on June 1st of 2020 to the Turlock, Modesto, Stanislaus County Continuum of Care, COC, in the amount of $857,100. The Board of Supervisors authorized the awarding of that funding on July 14th of 2020. Round 2, the California ESG CV2, NOFA, Notice of Funding Availability, was released by the state on October 2nd of 2020. It awarded the COC $22,767,898, of which the Board of Supervisors has authorized the awarding of the first release of funding on March 16th of 2021, and that was in the amount of $8,976,049 for emergency shelter operations. The Stanislaus Community System of Care, the CSOC, is locally recognized Continuum of Care, COC, and the Stanislaus County Planning and Community Development Department serves as the administrative entity for both rounds of funding. The source of all emergency solution grant funding is the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. ESG funding may be used to assist with engaging homeless individuals and families living on the streets, improving the number and quality of emergency shelters for homeless individuals and families, helping to operate those shelters, providing essential services to shelter residents, rapidly rehousing homeless individuals and families, and preventing family and individuals from becoming homeless. The state funding prioritization for Round 2 funding is to serve those most in need through rapid rehousing and emergency shelter, and to ensure all eligible persons receiving equitable service with dignity, respect, and compassion regardless of circumstance, ability, and identity. The eligible activities for Round 2 funding include emergency shelter, homeless prevention, rapid rehousing, street outreach, and homeless management information systems, HMIS. While homeless prevention is an eligible activity, locally it is not eligible since we still have a need for emergency shelter and rapid rehousing. On December 17th, the CSOC, with the endorsement of the Stanislaus Homeless Alliance, the SHA, approved the following funding strategy for the Round 2 California ESG funding, and it allocated 74.6% to emergency shelter with a breakdown between operations and development. 2.2% went to rapid rehousing, 10% to street outreach, 10% to homeless management information systems, and 3.2% to administration. The first notice of funding availability, NOFA, was released for the round 2 funding in the amount of $10 million for emergency shelter operations funding. Funding was made available to the 12 emergency shelters in Stanislaus County, 10 that were existing, 2 under construction, and the maximum funding amount was established based on a 3-tiered system that gave greater daily per bed values to shelters based on level of service provided. Modesto Gospel Mission did not participate, and 2 other shelters did not submit applications. 9 shelters were awarded a total of $8.9 million on March 16, 2021, and that was the first release of round 2 funding. On April 21st of 2021, the CSOC approved the following award strategy for the remaining $11.4 million in unallocated funding. Just over $8 million was made available to emergency shelters for rehab, renovation, or expansion of existing emergency shelter facilities, motel, hotel, and other property rental or emergency shelters, and service and operation for existing emergency shelter facilities. $500,000 was made available for rapid rehousing, $2.2 million for street outreach, and $683,000 for homeless management information systems. The second notice of funding availability for the remaining $11.4 million in funding was released on May 11th of 2021. A total of 9 applications were received. 2 of the applications were from the Salvation Army with options for the rehabilitation and renovation of the same building, and as such, only one of the applications may be funded, thus creating a range in the amount of funding requested. Total funding requests range from $6.8 to $9.7 million, with $1.1 million being requested for emergency shelter operations services, $3 million to $5.9 million for rehab and renovation, $2.4 million for street outreach, and $104,212 for homeless management information systems. All of the applications received have been reviewed and ranked by a grant review panel. During the review process, it was identified that the $1 million request from the Turlock Gospel Mission for rehabilitation and renovation was actually for new construction, which is not eligible for funding. Thus, the $1 million has been excluded from the funding recommendation. The Salvation Army's 2 applications have been given the same ranking. The difference in the option is the inclusion of a second story, allowing for increased capacity. Due to concerns with the extent of the development and timing for expenditure of the $4.2 million second option, the grant review panel has recommended the awarding of the $1.3 million option, which is the single story, with direction to staff to work with the Salvation Army to further assess the viability of the second option, and that the second option be considered for awarding if determined viable and no other option for the remaining funding materializes. Except for Salvation Army and Turlock Gospel Mission, all applications are recommended for the full requested amounts, with the total funding recommendation before you this morning of $5,867,304. Understanding that there are a lot of numbers that are associated with this round 2 California ESG CV2 funding, we share this next slide in an effort to hopefully simplify where we are in terms of allocations, awards, and the remaining funding based on the recommended awards that are before you this morning. Going from left to right, you can see that with the emergency shelter, the $16 million, we have awarded $8.9 million. Or $8,976,049. The recommended awards this morning would be $3,272,056 for a total funding availability of 4.7, still remaining, 4.7 million. Rapid rehousing, 500,000 was made available, and to date, none of that money has been allocated, so there is still 500,000 available. For street outreach of the $2.2 million that had been made available, this morning's recommendation is to award $2,491,036. That is a $214,247 increase over what the original funding strategy was, but the CSOC and SHA, when we took the proposals, were good with that, provided that we had remaining funding in the other categories. For HMIS, 2.2 million was made available. 1.5 million was put in reserve for the CSOC's collaborative applicant for homeless management information systems. There was a request this morning for 104,212, which leaves 578,824. So when you adjust for that overage of the 214,000 for street outreach, if the recommended awards are authorized this morning, there will be still a remaining amount of 5,596,392 still pending an award needing to be allocated. The recommendations being presented this morning were presented to the Stanislaus Homeless Alliance on June 9th and to the CSOC on June 17th. No concerns or objections were expressed by either the SHA or the CSOC. If recommendations are approved, again, there will be over 5.5 million remaining available. County planning is working with the rehab and renovation applications to confirm project viability. And we have also sent out a request for proposals, an RFP, to all of the California ESG CV1 Round 1 and Round 2 applicants in order to identify other opportunities to award funding. And we are seeing that there are opportunities there. There is interest, so we are actively going through that process of receiving proposals. And the RFP will remain open until all funding is awarded. As has been shared in the past, the California ESG Round 1 and Round 2 funding, which is a combined total of just over 23 million, comes with a very aggressive expenditure deadline, the first being July 31st, just under a month away, with 20% of the funding expended for a total amount of 4.7 million that needs to be expended. These deadlines were made worse by HCD's delay in releasing the contracts, but those contracts have all been released, and we have been able to locally release all of our contracts. And while we were waiting for those contracts and agreements, staff had been working with the awarded agencies to prepare them to submit their reimbursement requests, which will all need to be processed and into HUD by July 30th. So it's going to be a very, very busy month in our office as we work through this, but we are confident that with the agencies, pushing along with us, that, we will get there. On a positive note, HCD has extended the deadline for expending funding for emergency shelter activities from January 31st of 2022 to July 30th of 2022. So that will open up the capacity for emergency shelters to utilize more funding in the operation of shelters during the added 6 months. With that, that concludes my report. We are available to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions of staff?
I did just a couple. Thank you guys for all this work, all this information, and with regard to this latest round here. When we first started working on the homeless stuff, probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and I know we led the state probably here in this county in a lot of work we were doing. I mean, we couldn't find that. We had no money, right? We didn't have anything. We were just out there kind of on a wing and a prayer trying to deal with the issues here, and kind of through the focus on prevention that we started with. But now the money just comes to us, like there's no tomorrow. It just keeps coming. And so my concern here, and Jody, you and I have talked a little bit about this, about the HMIS system. And we got funding here for HMIS, a homeless management information system, I'm sorry. And we're doing that again. But we haven't seen any data. How are we doing with our homeless population? What kind of results are we getting here? And I know COVID, put the brakes on everything, and we were just trying to survive and get through this. But we have got to get data from this homeless information system, which we are spending millions of dollars on, $2.2 million, that we've allocated for the system. And the whole purpose is that we can't just warehouse people. Mm-hmm. And I know we've got a lot of people doing great things, and we're seeing results. But we need to have it come back here to the board to be able to, with the data that we're gathering, with the money that we're spending for this program, to gather the data. The whole purpose was to get people into the system and track them and see where they're going, and to prove that we're doing good work and that they're recovering and we're transitioning them into permanent supportive housing or permanent housing. And we just haven't had that. And I understand COVID, and that's put the brakes on a lot of this stuff. But we've really got to get those numbers back to us here with the money we're spending on this program. And again, because we're not going to warehousing does us no good, and we can't build our way out of this. I always say it's all about services and programming, and to get these people into services, but we need that information. We've got to get that back to us here and see what's going on. And I know that every entity that's involved in dealing with homeless in this county is supposed to be inputting into that system and recording these individuals and tracking them as they go. And like I said, I know Jody and I have talked about this, and I whined about this with Jody, I'm sorry. But I just wanted to do it a little bit more here, because I really want to see that we're, so right now we're kind of looking on the, how's it look today? It looks better, there's less people out here today. I know we kind of do it that way. And I know it's more than that, I get it. But let's get back here in front of us and show and justify what we're doing, and that we are making a difference and progressing. I know we are. I know we're doing great work out there, but let's get those numbers in front of us so we can see that. That was the one thing. And the other thing was just the downtown streets team. I know it's one of my favorite things that I see as I come in, and I've said this before, is to pull into town and see those people out on the streets and working. It's everything that we want. Is people, and I met a lady last week at the Salvation Army. We were serving food at the Salvation Army, and one of the individuals came up to me, and she had attended our Shaw meetings, and this is the stuff that the data will show us. She attended our Shaw meetings when she was living on the streets, and there she was now employed at the Salvation Army, and just so proud. And her husband was she was on the Salvation Army side, and her husband was employed over on our local area shelter side, and said she used to attend the meetings, was living on the streets, and now she's, as a result of the downtown streets team, which she got on, they helped her transition into finding a job, and now she has permanent housing. Just a great story. And I told her I wanted her to come here and share that story, because we don't have any other data that tells us right now what's going on. So anyway, I just want to emphasize that get the data from HMS, come back here, report to us, please, and then whatever we can do to expand that downtown streets team to other cities. And I know we're working on that too. I know we're in the process of doing that. I'd love to. I know Turlock, Vito would love to see it in Turlock. I'm sure if we can get them to accept it down there. But anyway, okay, that's my comments. Thank you guys for what you're doing.
Was in this NOFA, the funding round was. Street outreach was a component, but not downtown streets teams. Was employment a component of this? I don't think it fit into this funding.
No.
And would that have to go back to the community systems of care in order to try and align it so that that was available, or is it in the federal structure that doesn't allow it? Do you know?
It could be part of a future upcoming NOFA, but for this pot of money, it's not something that could be. They could not be directly funded. If they're part of a shelter program or facility, they could be subcontracted as part of, but to fund them directly would be difficult with this pot of money.
Okay, so some sort of a component along with the shelter. The reason I think that's important is because there's money available. Obviously, I was surprised I was on the scoring panel of this last funding cycle. And I'm surprised there wasn't more asked, but the parameters are pretty tight. And what they can ask for, no new construction. It's either rehab or reconfiguring or something within the existing shelter. So something we can talk about, because I would agree, it brings so much self-worth to folks when they're actually working, and that's a great program that we funded in the past. Any other questions? Questions? All right. Anyone in the audience? Public members? Seeing none, bring it back to the board for action.
I will make a motion to approve all staff recommendations.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
On to item 7.2, acceptance of an update of Mountain Valley EMS Emergency Medical Services Agency on ambulance response time issues and the impact of mutual aid availability between American Medical Response and healthcare and hospital districts, ambulance providers. And it looks like Mary Ann and Richard are presenting. Director.
Okay, Hey, good morning. This is Mary Ann Lilly, and I am the Director of the Health Services Agency. I am very happy to be here and not to be presenting about COVID today. With me today, we're going to be several speakers this morning, but today Richard Murdoch and Joel War from the CEO's office assisting with this presentation and the work that we're doing. Let's go to the next slide. So I thought I'd start by just giving a little bit of context because we've been here recently about the EMS model, and that's not really what we're here for today, but just to give an update because we've been here in March and May, and there's a lot of work going on between HSA, the sheriff, OES, CEO's office, working on this EMS model, and from the action that was taken on at the May 25th meeting, wanted you to know that the revised termination letter to the JPA was sent out, extending the JPA participation through the end of June of 22. And that, as we reported in the May board item, the work continues with the other JPA counties. We're awaiting another work group meeting, and we intend to be back before you by the end of August with more information on that plan for an internal agency function and potentially to offer services to the other counties. So we'll be back about that. But today we're really here as an update from the discussion that followed the May 25th presentation about the ambulance response issues and some mutual aid issues that are going on in the community. So we're here to give that update today. And so at this point, I'm going to turn the presentation to Richard Murdoch, the Fire Warden and Assistant Director of the Office of Emergency Services.
Good morning. So at the May 25th Board of Supervisors meeting, both Supervisors Condit and Supervisor Withrow had some questions with regards to some of the issues that are currently taking place within the county. And so I just briefly wanted to give an overview of the issues, and then we have Cindy Murdoch from Mountain Valley EMS Agency and Cindy Woolston from American Medical Response to talk a little bit about some of the resolutions to these issues. So just to reiterate some of the things that we talked about on the 25th, we've had some recurring intermittent response time delays that really have impacted fire first responder agencies. And specifically when you start looking at the western portion or the eastern portion of the county where there's some long response times, we've had some occurrences where the response time was greater than 35 minutes, where AMR is the owner of the exclusive operating area, and because of the inability to have some ambulances as deployment, requested mutual aid from healthcare districts to respond, and so fire first responders were on scene for a significant period of time with a patient waiting for that ambulance. And that also brings a concern about jeopardizing care due to those long wait times, specifically if a patient is critical, waiting on scene for an ambulance to arrive. And I believe, fortunately, we haven't had any major catastrophes as a result of that, but it's there waiting to happen if we don't address this. The daily brownout of ambulances impacting the system status planning and the standards of care taking place on a daily basis. Excessive mutual aid reliance on healthcare district providers by AMR, which impacts the resources and availability in the healthcare districts, which I brought up at the last May 25th meeting with regards to those specifically in Del Porto, West Side, and Oak Valley healthcare districts where they are limited on their resources and taxing those resources to provide support on a daily basis. And then the complaints, really the unusual occurrence reports and the concerns that have been coming to the county officials, county staff, as well as to the Mountain Valley EMS agencies from those district ambulance providers as well as the fire agencies. And so those were the overview of the issues that we discussed at the May 25th meeting. And then you'll hear some reports from Cindy Murdoch from Mountain Valley EMS Agency and Cindy Woolston from AMR.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Cindy Murdaugh, the Interim Executive Director with Mountain Valley EMS Agency. I am going to, okay, we have it on the screen. Contractual obligations, specifically for AMR, specifically Section 4, Deployment 4.1 Ambulance Deployment System Status Plan. I'm going to speak on that. It states that the contractor shall deploy resources to achieve response time requirements within the EOAs. Contractors shall have mechanisms to meet the demand during peak periods or unexpected high call volume. The issue that we're having currently is the staffing issues that AMR is currently having. They are on an average browning out an average of 4 to 5 units on a daily basis. That's out of a 26-unit deployment plan for a 24-hour period. So 4 to 5 units, it really affects the system. With the number of browned out units, the use of mutual aid is excessive, as Richard shared. January through May, I ran the numbers, and a total of 540 unit hours was contributed to AMR's response zone from the healthcare districts. That's an average of 230 calls per month that those providers are running for AMR. Richard? Oh. Efforts to resolve. So Mountain Valley and OES administration have met with AMR on several occasions to discuss delayed responses and excessive use of mutual aid. During those discussions, several recommendations were made to mitigate the issues. One of the recommendations is the AMR supervisory staff to backfill unstaffed ambulances. AMR has several supervisors and managerial staff on daily, and so we had recommended to them that they staff the units to help backfill those open spots. They said that they had been working on that and that some of those shifts had been filled by supervisors. And all of those supervisors are licensed, accredited paramedics in the county. So AMR to reach out to other AMR operations for support. Basically, AMR has multiple operations throughout California, and at times in the past they have sent paramedics to help them backstaff their units that they couldn't fill. So that was a recommendation that we had. AMR to incorporate their interfacility transport units into the 911 system. Interfacility transport units, they have both BLS and ALS. Currently, they would be able to integrate those ALS units into the 911 system. AMR to review and make recommendations for potential modifications to the system status plan. There's currently a system status plan that incorporates AMR and the healthcare district's post locations. There's also language within that plan that addresses mutual aid. The language that's in there, it protects the districts somewhat, but we need to strengthen that language to help protect those ambulance providers. AMR to reach out and collaborate with system partners, specifically fire agencies. And Cindy Woolston is going to report now from their work on these issues.
Good morning, members of the board. Cindy Woolston, Regional Director for American Medical Response. Just to give kind of a quick overview, I know Richard Murdoch has covered this and Marianne as well, but AMR has been providing service to this county for 62 years. In 2019, as you're aware, we were awarded a contract through a competitive bid process, and we're currently in our second year of that contract. The RFP and new contract language changed many aspects of the EMS system for both the fire departments and AMR. This slide, I just wanted this in here just to depict to you in 2020, as we know, COVID hit. The blue line will show you our call volume and where that dip took place when COVID did come into effect for this area, and the red line will depict our recovery period as we start to see our call volume coming back. Our commitment to our employees during this period of time was that we would not reduce jobs or hours for full-time personnel. We did see a drop in our part-time personnel due to lack of work. We paid child care stipends so people didn't have to miss work, provided 24/7 nurse advice line support, provided on-site COVID testing, and paid for all missed days due to quarantine and/or illness. As we come out of COVID, staffing is our biggest problem. Training programs I had reported at the previous meeting, many had been either closed down or we saw diminished enrollment. Those are starting to open back up. We're starting to see EMTs come back into the pipeline. The medic pipeline is still running a little bit slow at this point. So we, as a result of that, we will continue to have a gap in hiring of paramedics over the next 4 to 6 months. We've also been unable to fully replace our part-time staff at this point. We've also had employees leave to pursue careers within the fire departments and or making the step into nursing careers. And to Cindy's point, as she talked about, AMR typically will bring strike teams into areas that are struggling with staffing and that type of thing. We've been unable to do that at this point because our workforce throughout the state is fatigued for all the COVID deployments that we had been doing over the last year. So our staffing mitigation, one of the things that we're looking at is partnering with the ALS fire departments, that would be Modesto Fire as well as Consolidated. We have already met with Modesto Fire. I will be reaching out to Consolidated Fire to be setting up an appointment with them. But we're looking at what types of options are out there that we can share paramedic resources. We're also looking at cross-training our medic air personnel to assist in staffing ambulances. We're implementing a travel medic program, which is similar to a traveling nurse, if you're familiar with that. And then we're continuing with our current hiring process, which is offering hiring bonuses for part-time employees to move into those full-time positions, and then paying for paramedic internships. We also currently have 8 employees that are entering into paramedic training. 4 of those are starting in August. The other 4 will start in October. And then we've had the support of Mountain Valley to speed up the accreditation and reciprocity processes for those employees coming new into the county. Mutual aid. We've talked about mutual aid quite a bit. It is a challenge in this county. Some of this is due to AMR staffing issues, and some is driven by the new system design. In the county system status plan, the requirement is to send the closest ambulance to any call, regardless of the EOA provider. And with the RFP design and the extended response times, predominantly in the ALS fire districts, you're going to see a longer response times due to the RFP language. And the rural providers absolutely have been impacted by our staffing shortages as well as the call volumes surges that we've been experiencing. Go ahead, Jewel. So our mitigation to this is we've had several conversations on a tiered response system. Richard Murdoch has reported to the board on that a couple different times. We have had a couple meetings within the county with stakeholders to discuss a tiered response system. This is something that will allow paramedic units to respond to the higher acuity calls and the BLS units to respond to the lower acuity calls. This has been implemented in other counties throughout the state, and they've had some success with this. And again, we're pursuing that type of a system for Stanislaus County. Internally, AMR is also looking at their current system status plan and our deployment. What we're doing there is trying to determine, do we need to change actual post locations, or do we need to change our actual shift schedules that we currently have in play. And then Cindy also had mentioned that we've had some discussions on reviewing the county system status plan specific to the mutual aid language and to see if there's any changes that we can make in that. Our ask is that we continue to move forward with our partnerships with the fire departments and some of these other things that we have in play. The big one, again, is the tiered response system. If we can move forward with that. We can see a immediate drop in some of the mutual aid, as well as having more ambulances on the road. And it's not a fix-all to everything. We still need to continue with our hiring process and getting more ambulances staffed and out there. But with the support of Mountain Valley, the board, and the fire department, we'd like to continue to move forward with that. And that's the end of my presentation, if there's any questions.
I believe we have
Still
two more slides.
Yeah. Finish, and then we'll ask questions.
Okay, in regards to accountability and next steps, Mountain Valley to continue monitoring AMR's daily deployment levels, late responses, and the use of mutual aid. We've, since the last meeting here and report, we worked with First Watch, our data management company, and had a custom report built for mutual aid. So we're monitoring that daily to make sure that we're aware of what's happening. There are some issues with compliance numbers for AMR, and the next bullet point, Mountain Valley is currently reviewing the issues in consultation with legal counsel. Mountain Valley will be reporting the status at the next JPA board meeting, which is in August, I believe August 12th. Policy considerations to be explored, which could enable this two-tiered system in the future in incorporating BLS response within the system. We met, as Cindy referred to, we met on June 8th with the stakeholders, with fire and the ambulance providers, and just had a discussion. Included was Chief Murdoch and myself. And we had a discussion regarding this two-tiered system and what's out there, what people are doing, and kind of charged everyone there to go back and do some investigation and review and see what options are there. We do have another meeting scheduled for this Thursday, July 1st. And at that meeting, the providers, all ambulance providers, were charged to come back and present to us exactly what a two-tiered BLS integration into the system would look like for their response areas. So with that, I think Marianne.
Okay, that concludes the update report that we had planned for you today. So the staff recommendation is to ask that you accept the update from Mountain Valley Emergency Medical Services Agency on ambulance response time issues and the impact on mutual aid availability between American Medical Response and the Healthcare Hospital District ambulance providers. And with that, all of us are here to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? We'll start with.
Yes, absolutely.
All
Thank you,
right,
Mr.
Supervisor
Chairman.
Connie.
Mary Ann, Richard, Jewel, Cindy, thank you for your update. I would have to assume that all the things that we are looking at are on a fast track. Would that be safe to say?
Yes.
And when I say fast track, what, next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
I can speak to the two-tier response system. One of the obstacles for us right now with the two-tier response system is the Chapter 6.7 of the ordinance, because the ordinance clearly states that in Stanislaus County, only an ALS ambulance can respond to emergencies, which is equipped with a paramedic and an EMT. So we have a draft making some changes of those level of service standards and bring back to the board to fix that. Hopefully that won't take us too long to complete. I mean, we can fast track that as getting it to the board. And then in the interim, I know that AMR is working with Modesto Fire and Stanislaus Consolidated Fire to fix some of the issues with their staffing shortages. So we've kind of got two steps that we're taking. One is fast tracking to get the two-tier system in place. We've reached out to Fresno County and Merced County. They both have this system in place, and both of the executive directors have said it's been great for them in their counties, and they've seen some decrease in mutual aid reliance. And then the second piece is just on an interim basis with the fire agencies to rely on the ALS for fire.
Okay. And also, we talked about the BLS units being incorporated into that, and I know there's some language that need to be that needs to be changed. Is also the critical transport unit, is that being added in, like the critical?
You're speaking to the
Cindy, come on.
Can you come? Yep.
I'm assuming you're referring to what we call as a CCT unit. That is not incorporated currently into the 911 system. We do use that on the IFT side to kind of run some of those calls if they're not busy running critical care interfacility transports, but they're not into the 911 system at this point.
Is that something that's being looked at that can be done, and it just adds another unit?
It does add another unit. We've not discussed that with Richard, but I'm sure we can certainly have those discussions and see how that can play in.
Okay. And again, talking about the fast track and talking with our local fire partners, how are those discussions going?
We've only had the discussion with Modesto Fire at this point. That discussion went very well. I will be reaching out to Consolidated to try to get something set up with them next week. I did have a small conversation with Clint Bray before the meeting started. And in respect to both the fire department and AMR, both of us, since we're represented, our employees are represented by the union, we also have to meet with the union leadership to discuss those options as well.
Okay. You were talking about the mutual aid design and how that has maybe hampered some of the response time. Can you kind of explain that further?
Yeah, what I said was the language in the new contracts, specifically with ALS Fire, we have a much longer response time than we do with the other levels of fire departments. So that, depending on how we're posting our units, because we know there's ALS Fire there to respond, that can trigger, specifically with Oak Valley, will trigger a mutual aid response from them because my units are farther away. And they're the closest unit.
Right. Okay. So I was thinking more on the other side of when we call mutual aid, when ripping out of county, there's nothing that is stopping that or slowing that response, right?
There initially, there was with previous leadership at Mountain Valley, the directive was that we could not use resources from out of Stanislaus County until Stanislaus County was at a status 0. That meant no Stanislaus County ambulances were available. That has since changed under Cindy's leadership, and now we can tap into those resources outside of the county, and specifically Ripon Fire because they're right across the river there.
Okay. And Escalon, right?
Correct,
across.
yes.
So that, Cindy, going back to you, that has been handled to where the outside, out-of-county ambulance responses are coming into our county now, whether it be status 1, 2.
Correct. If they're the closest unit.
It's the closest unit
Mm-hmm.
they're going. Yes. Unreal, we got to that.
Yeah, and so just to give an example, one of the issues that we see with the healthcare districts is that if a healthcare district is transporting from the west side of the county to Doctors Medical Center or Memorial Medical Center, the way the system status plan works is when they drop off their patients, if they happen to be the closest ambulance to a 911 call, they will get pulled into this system, and they can be pulled into that system for quite some time because the system is so low with regards to the number of deployments from AMR. And so the healthcare districts, there's been times where they're, as you can see, they're running close to 8 calls per day for mutual aid. So if they drop off a patient at one of our hospitals in Stanislaus County and down in Modesto, then there's a likelihood that they're going to get sucked into the system and continue to run calls because they're the closest ambulance to that emergency call. Does that make sense? I mean, that creates an issue. That creates a huge issue for us.
That's all the questions I got.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yes, thank you guys for getting back to us and letting us know that you're working on this. Just two quick things. The two-tier system, is that supposed to, when we look at that, really help us in the rural areas? Is that the purpose of does the two-tier system, because that's what I know we're working with the City of Modesto and Consolidated, it sounds like, but as far as our rural areas, how's that going? I mean, there's a two-tier system that is supposedly...
Yeah, so I think you'd probably get a different opinion from each of those ambulance directors for each of the healthcare districts. I think they would utilize them in different ways. It would benefit, and this is just speaking from conversations with Patterson District Ambulance, and I believe we have a director here from Westside Healthcare District that could speak to it. But if they were to implement 2 EMTs on an ambulance and they have a call that is a very low acuity call, and let's just say it's something like a blister on the foot and the person wants to go to the hospital, then those 2 EMTs can transport that person to the hospital and save the paramedic for the higher level of acuity type call. And so from my understanding, they are looking at that option in Patterson. I don't know with regards to Westside Healthcare District or with Oak Valley, because I know they have limited resources to place an ambulance in service with 2 EMT1s, or 2 EMTs, I should say.
Okay. Okay, then just my last question. I mean, I appreciate and understand the issues that AMR is having with all the personnel and trying to work through that. I get that, but still we're in this, I guess that's happening statewide, we're in that spot. So my question kind of is to legal, I'd just like to know our options with regard to our contract with AMR. Are there any outs? Do we have any outs for failure to comply? Are there any options that we have as far as them being out of compliance and us getting out of this contract? Not that we're going to do that, but I just would like that information available. Do you know? I don't know if Tom knows that, or if...
Is this a Mountain Valley?
Yes.
I guess it's
a Mountain Valley question directed.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I know.
Okay, so if, for compliance, there's other reasons also that an ambulance provider could be in breach. 3 consecutive months out of compliance in a specific response area would trigger breach. A letter of breach would be sent to the provider and with a 30-day opportunity to cure. So our goal, our hope would be that they would make that 30-day requirement. If not, then there's other steps that can be taken, and basically it's a takeover. And so we don't want to get to that point. So we're working with the providers, working with all the providers, but working with AMR specifically to ensure that they do meet the requirements that we have within the contract.
Okay, very good. Just want to make sure we're aware of our options there. Thank you.
Any other questions?
It's more of a statement. I'm having trouble getting to the point to where now that we have a crisis, all of these negotiations are taking place. Somebody has dropped the ball somewhere. And I think they need to be held responsible for it. Granted, we all dealt with COVID. It all had major impacts on every organization around. But AMR is a large company. And I just really feel they didn't give Stanislaus County the resources needed. I mean, they probably have forecasters forecasting what's going to happen. And now that we're discussing these issues at the county board level, we are now into these discussions. I just have real heartburn over that this wasn't predicted as an outcome down the road if they were having these problems. I just really have a problem with it.
Thank you. I guess the way I look at this is a real disappointing outcome after 30 or 40 days. I heard the most alarming thing I heard was that we've spoken with Modesto Fire and we're going to set up a meeting with Consolidated. And these things shouldn't take but a day. I mean, literally a day. If it reaches a level, and generally what you're trying to do is buy time. That's generally why I would set a meeting a little bit later. And buying time means money because we put a tremendous burden on the healthcare districts. People are paying for it to have an ambulance service there, and I think it was 240 hours of mutual aid. And mutual aid works. This has nothing to do with mutual aid because when there's an emergency, all people need to respond. Today I drove on my way in, there was a fire. I saw Burbank Paradise out in Houston on the corner with their fire truck. That's the way the system's supposed to work, and it's working, but unfortunately it's working. There's a burden on one to benefit the other. And so things need to move a lot faster. I appreciate Supervisor Condit's, his sentiment that this rises, and it sounds corny to say a 911, you know, that's what I always use as something reaches a level and it becomes a high priority, and we're not acting, I'm not saying that Mountain Valley's not, or our team, but for AMR, this is really important for the folks of Stanislaus County. We made a promise when we signed a contract that we're going to, or that you're going to provide a level of service, and I don't think that's happening right now. So short of allowing this to escape again another 30 days, I want to have this discussion again like we did. It took a little more than 30 days, but we need to know, because I would imagine that they're in default or whatever the verbiage is right now currently, and Mountain Valley is in charge, of which Supervisor Buck Condit is our representative, but we need to see a better outcome, an improvement in the outcome, even if it's incremental, because quite frankly, the way I see this is there's been no incremental improvement. I hear that supervisors are helping, but I don't know that. I mean, this is just talk as far as I'm concerned. So I'm putting a lot of faith, obviously. I don't want to put any pressure on Mountain Valley and our member, but this board needs to stay informed, and as Supervisor Withrow said, then there has to be other steps taken to protect the 550,000 residents of Stanislaus County. So this is very serious. I want you to take it very seriously. I know you do. I'm not saying you don't, but the conversation with Modesto Fire and Consolidated, which seem to be the lowest hanging fruit because they have folks available, that discussion needs to happen. It needs to happen today, not tomorrow, today. And you know, you can sit and argue about money and other things, but in the meantime, the constituents aren't being served to their fullest potential. And with that, I guess, if there's no other comments, I guess I'll give a chance for the public if they have anything to say. Seeing none, we are just supposed to accept this, right? Yeah, accept this. I'll look for a motion to accept this.
Make a motion to accept the recommendation.
Second. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all for coming in today, presenting. I'm going to move on to item 7.3, acceptance of an updated Stanislaus County Information Technology Assessment Project. Raul Mendez and Paul Gibson of IT Central will be presenting, along with our consultant. That's it. So,
yeah, and as we're bringing the presentation up, I did want to just say a couple of quick words. First is this presentation has been a long time in the making, and recognizing we just came off of a discussion about some of the impacts to COVID, I can tell you we've tried very, very hard to keep this process going and moving forward, even in a difficult circumstance over this last year, but it truly has been a challenge. I just wanted the board to know what really prompted us to move in this direction, because it's very significant for us, and actually for me personally. I think within just a few months of me becoming CEO of the county, we did have what I just generically call a cyber attack here in Stanislaus County, and wound up with a ransomware type incident where someone, very scrupulous actors, had successfully captured one of our department's IT systems and tried to hold it for ransom, essentially. And that put us in a very difficult predicament for a number of reasons. Our team worked tremendously over the course of a month to try to get everything back and rolling. And we were back in pretty short order in that instance. In terms of serving the public on those platforms, we didn't have any specific challenges with actually serving the public. However, the incident revealed to us just how vulnerable we are as an organization. And those types of attacks on our systems have continued since that time, and we fortunately have been able to maintain our systems in a way to prevent any significant challenges to our IT infrastructure. However, we recognize that going forward, it is only getting worse. And every day we're reading headlines about organizations impacted by security issues associated with IT and so forth. So in that spirit, I went to our team and our brain trust around IT and made it clear that what does it take to ensure that we are the best positioned organization anywhere we can find to address these kinds of issues and at least thwart them in the future. And out of that came a very, very robust assessment that was not just focused on security, but also the strategic intent of our IT system, how we're serving our county departments, how we're serving the public, the deployment of our resources. I think through this process we learned, and we already knew through the budget process, we spend a lot of money on IT support in Stanislaus County. The question is, are we spending our money in the most efficient and best way? And on the front end of this process, if you looked at it and if you were running a $1.5 billion organization and you were to build an IT infrastructure from the ground up, the way that our current structure is built, it's just not the way you would build it. And that's the truth. So I think we knew that the consultant recommendations would come back with areas that needed to be improved and some structural issues that need to be addressed in Stanislaus County. So that was the spirit upon which we went through this effort. The work itself is very, very robust. I know we're only going to see so many pages of it today, but I can tell you there's a lot more detail behind that we have gone through. So I've asked the team to just highlight those big specific areas that we will be working forward. And I think as you see in the staff report, we are committed to coming back to this board. This is going to be a living, breathing process until we check the box on most of these recommendations and put in place a system that maintains itself going forward in a way that we can all be proud of. So thank you all very much for putting up with that intro, but I will just tell you this is a very personal issue that we need to pay attention to, and I look forward to all of our departments doing that with us. So it's all yours, Raul.
Thank you, Jody. Chairman Keyes, members of the board, obviously CEO Hayes, County Council Bowes, Raul Mendez, Assistant Executive Officer, here before you this morning, still morning, to provide an update on the countywide IT assessment work that's been done by our project team. To my left, I wanted to introduce the co-presenters, Chris Reagan from Gartner Incorporated, a senior managing partner, and then obviously our Information Technology Central Director, Paul Gibson. I have the privilege of introducing the team that will be making the presentation. Wanted to just provide a little framework for the presentation. I believe it's important for us to provide some background to this initiative above and beyond what our CEOs have already provided, not only for you as a board, but also members of our community. Also wanted to report on the progress that's been made in the course of the last year on this important initiative for our organization. And as mentioned by CEO Hayes, start outlining some of the next steps. This is the first of many presentations that will come before you as we go forward on this important topic. So without further ado, I'd like to present or turn it over to our co-presenters here. Thank you.
Thanks, Raul. Yeah, okay, thank you. So just wanted to give a little bit of background on the assessment process, and then Chris is going to kind of walk us through some of the particulars of exactly how it played out and the results thereof. We did come to the Board of Supervisors in February of last year asking to sign a contract with Gartner to conduct this IT assessment. The goal there was to deliver a proposed roadmap from which Stanislaus County could operate in order to optimize countywide information technology operation structure, right? We had done some preparatory work prior to bringing Gartner on board. We really, going back to the IT strategic plan of 2017, we had proposed some improvements, including an assessment along these lines. And so we had been working behind the scenes prior to bringing Gartner in. The project commenced once the board approved it in February. However, there was a pause placed on the project in March just due to impacts of COVID-19, resources, et cetera. We were able, however, to take the project back up again in July, and the work was completed in December of 2020. We presented to our IT steering committee, Chief Executive Office, senior leadership team, et cetera, the results of the study in December, and you will see some of the work that came out of that here today. Chris, if you don't mind giving us a little bit of background on kind of who Gartner is and why we should listen to what it is that you have to say.
Thank you for welcoming me. And you ask a consultant to speak about himself, you might get more than a few words. Gartner is the world's leading business technology research firm. We stand out because we don't sell technology. Our stock ticker is IT. What we do is really research and advisory. So I won't read every word on that page. We tried to get more in and make it smaller. But the bottom line is that we've been serving for decades captains of industry, large-scale and small-scale companies, organizations, and governments, helping to give advice and take the fact and reason-based work that we do to help our constituents, whether that be for-profit commercial firms or the space that I work in as a senior managing partner is all in state and local government. So behind that, we actually have the world's largest IT research database that's continually refreshed and growing, as well as the largest industry benchmark repository. I say those because it's meaningful to what we're going to talk about today. When we speak about trends and spend amounts and those things, we're speaking from a comparative presence based on fact with reasoning out how we see organizations moving, growing, and transforming to succeed. And as far as the areas you can read either in the materials later or on the screen now, we cover all major consulting areas when it comes to technology and business.
Thank you. I just wanted to touch briefly on the project team from the county side who was involved in this project. Gartner obviously brought a multidisciplinary team of experts across different IT disciplines, but in terms of county representation in this process, very early on, we interviewed alongside Gartner county department heads. So we brought county department heads in from every county department, talking to them about their pain points, about their processes, about their goals, et cetera. We included our existing county IT leadership and county IT managers groups all throughout the process. So we had regular meetings with those folks in workshops and status updates, et cetera. We also, as part of the application assessment, we involved department users of many different applications. You're going to hear more from Chris about the application assessment component of the process. We sought input and perspectives from county departmental staff who are on the ground actually using these applications on a day-to-day basis. And all throughout the process, myself, my staff, Chief Executive Office staff, were involved in all of these meetings alongside Gartner as we proceeded through this entire process. If you don't mind, Chris.
So after we talked with the team here as well as interacting with CEO Hayes, we thought, how really should we look at the fullness of over 500,000 people in a county the size of Stanislaus County? So what we arrived at, like CEO Hayes said, was really we need to understand how IT, beyond security, how they're structured to run. How do they provide the support they need, et cetera. So we came up with a 3-part analysis that began with looking at the staff and spend. How are you staffed? What are the skills? How are they allocated out throughout the county? And then also, within that, where's the spend tied to the staff and the skill to make sure, security's mentioned, obviously you need to have the skills to manage security in the world today, but it's not just security, you need to have that to service the diverse departments that you also support to serve the citizens and the internal service of IT to the government organization. Then we said, that's where the spend is, that's where the staff is, what are the actual, we say applications, in the world today those are tools. Those are tools by which government services the needs of their residents and visitors. So what are the applications? What's being used? And I think, for this size, I think we interviewed more than 30 departments. We went in depth with both IT and business users to try to understand what are they using? Does it meet their business need? Forget servers and mainframes or anything of the sort. Are the tools working? Because that business value is what's key. But then we also said this needs to be secure and manageable. How technically fit is it? I might be able to make it to the end of a 10-mile hike, but don't time me, right? What's the fitness matters. And then taking that, rolling it together, we said, okay, with this in mind, how well are they structured to meet this end? In the same way you can go play in a sporting event, but if you don't field enough members of your team, you might still play, but you're not set up to win. So how do we want to really grow and structure the organization? Those three things we rolled together, countywide IT findings and results. And then I warn you, they gave me 3 more slides, so I'll try to be brief. First of all, and we won't mince words here, Stanislaus County is highly decentralized. And this is a benchmark peer comparison for us. So you're 30% of peer average. That means the standard county and everyone we work with, we're non-disclosed, so we won't reveal those names to you. You're more than welcome to ask who you think your peers are. But when we look at what you do, the environment you do at urban-rural, and a number of metrics that we use, that means that most of your peers are 3 times or more centralized in providing an oversight view to manage the security, the processes, and safeguard the county. That trickles through everything. I'll repeat that as we go, because that affects the rest. That means your costs are higher. That means that across your 30-plus departments or business units, people are doing the same thing in multiple places, because it's not centrally provided if it could be necessarily. That means you have duplicate applications being done, duplicate tools being bought, sometimes not being seen by someone saying, hey, we already have that. So, that extent of decentralization trickles throughout. And CEO Hayes already mentioned this, but I'm going to sound like a doomsdayer here. IT security is only as good as its weakest link. That means IT security is not being managed as effectively as it could be because you are decentralized. And then I have what looks, some people think it looks like a target, but really it's quadrants in a circle. But if you look at the biggest red number, almost half of the applications, the tools being used, are actually technically obsolete or out of support. So it doesn't just mean the tool doesn't work well. If we think about this in terms of IT and what we're seeing in the world with bad actors and cybersecurity, that's like building a house with a vault-like front door and being happy with it. But you leave your garage open and unlocked. So this is something that, I don't bring this up as an accusation. This is a reality of what the team was looking at to say, we need to fix this. And clearly these were some of the results that said, there's room to improve this. If we roll forward to the next one, so we do research and advisory, so guess what? We have frameworks. You see one of those on the left on the screen right now. And this is through the eyes of your operating model. So how does IT support? In the world 30 years ago, technology was seen as something that was cool. Put a big screen TV in the lobby, but let's just do business as normal. In the world today, you can't do that because technology is interwoven into what we do. We all saw that with education under COVID. Suddenly my kids are doing school on an iPad and I'm saying, what? How does that work? That's a different question. As far as this operating model, though, what we see is your current state, we call an asset-based operating model. You're really focused on running the organization. There's nothing wrong with that. You do run. However, there's an inordinate amount of emphasis on running because you're using tools that are outdated and you're putting your effort into keeping things running instead of preparing for what's coming. So there isn't a lot of effort on how to grow. And grow is different than transform. Grow is to continue with trends. Transforming is to prepare for the future in new ways. So when we look at this model, the asset-based operating model is really about let's save money on IT. Let's treat these as expenses. Let's not treat them as part of our business. So the recommendation that we gave at the end is that really you need to move to a service model. And it's easy to look at that and think, oh, further up, further in, let's get to the rocket, let's get to the light bulb invention. We service everyone, commercial and government. If you were an Apple computer, you want to be an invention. If you're at Google, you want to be between value and invention. You're not. You're Stanislaus County. You don't exist to create cool tools and make a lot of money. You exist to service the citizens of this county. And internally, IT exists to service both the internal operations of the organizations as well as the citizens. So that's that view on the left there. What we see is you don't really have countywide knowledge sharing in any consistent way. Again, you're decentralized. Because of that, and because you're in that let's keep running model, you tend to be reactive instead of proactive. I'll tell you, working and doing a lot of security and maturity assessments in the last year or so, it wasn't just all of us who were locked at home. Bad actors in front of their computers also were. They got a lot of time to practice. They count on you to be reactive. If you were proactive, they wouldn't be there. They count on you to be reactive, and they plan their moves ahead like chess. So you need to be focused on how do we safeguard on the whole. And then also, historically, because you're running, you're not thinking about what are the skills that we need into the future. So what we see is that as far as your IT resource costs and operating model, really you have some key gaps in where technology is moving as far as skill sets and planning ahead. And then also with that, for the folks that are with you, we also heard some and saw some that there's some questions about the opportunities to grow. If I am coming out of MJC and I'm looking at growing my skills, I might come work for a couple of years, but that path might look like it ends if I want to continue to grow, if you don't have those job skills and those roles that are existing in other places. So, on the whole, that's the main key findings. As was mentioned earlier, we have a lot more depth to it, but to get to the point, our recommendations are, one, you really need to try to deliver higher value. The question with value always is value to who? And my answer would be, well, let's get towards delivering higher value, period. Pick someone. What's their higher value? Higher value to the citizens would be making sure the services are available and their information secure without interruption. Higher value to your internal departments would be take care of the things that are raising my costs that you could do for me centrally, so we can focus on delivering value through our business. Deliver that value and establish the capabilities and the skills to let you do it into the future. Number two, that greater agility piece, the more you have an eye on what should be centralized or what could be managed with some economies of scale. I mean, let's be honest, you have higher costs right now. You're actually paying 20% more to do the same thing another county's doing because you're decentralized. So let's get some agility. Let's get an ability to have your internal team to do what they should, free up your business units to do what they should, and do it in an effective way. And that comes down also to number three, optimize spending. This doesn't say stop spending. This doesn't say shrink spending. This is optimize spending. If you pay 20% more today to do the same thing your peers would do, let's get closer to what our peers pay for it and use that money to continue to grow and transform and prepare. And then manage those complexities. This is not a recommendation that says get rid of the complete decentralization. This is a study that says, well, let's be reasonable. You should have more things managed centrally for the betterment of the county while letting the departments do what they should do with their specific focuses in a decentralized manner. This isn't a take it all in-house. This is a let's take those steps to do this right.
Thanks, Chris. So just some next steps in terms of the process. Chief Executive Office will continue to work with ITC and county departments on recommendations from the IT assessment. They include determining the appropriate governance structure for the work, determine how best to engage county departments, identify the internal team that will be responsible for implementation oversight, conduct a review of the current organizational teams related to this area, review the Gartner recommendations with the governance structure to prioritize where to direct energy and resources, and then keep the Board of Supervisors apprised of progress by reporting back on a quarterly basis on this important initiative. So,
Yep. So thank you, Chris. Thank you, Paul. This brings us to our staff recommendation for today. Obviously, it's an update. We are asking that you accept an update on the Stanislaus County Information Technology Assessment Project. Provided a brief summary of some of the work that's been done over the course of the last year or so. and wanted to just bring that information to you for consideration, and also to be available to answer any questions you may have at this juncture. Please know, as CEO Hayes, we will be back every quarter going forward as we enter the new fiscal year, so there'll be plenty of opportunity for further dialogue and conversation as staff and the team gathers information, brings recommendations forward for your consideration. So staff is available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Hey, Chris, as you talk about a decentralized, something that just makes me think that means that people have their own IT, they're not using IT central departments. When you speak with those folks, so I can envision under, CSA or HSA, there's HIPAA, and then there's confidentiality. Everyone's got something they think is, that other people shouldn't see, I guess. But what do you hear beyond that on why they're not centralized? What is the pushback you got while looking into it?
Yeah, so I think at this point, we did talk with 30 or more departments, and actually everyone was quite open to having the conversation. The question comes down to they don't know how. So I think I heard at the beginning of the meeting today a great comment about, walking the streets and not having to look to see if there was cross traffic. The county's growing. You're over 500,000 people. The departments have been running. They haven't been transforming and growing. So I don't think that they developed decentrally in an intentional way to not share. What happened was they grew, and they all had their mandate, and they followed that mandate. And so the central IT also has been growing. 30 years ago, this would be a different conversation about technology. So as it's all been growing, we see this in other counties as well. Technology now is part of business, and they haven't evolved to share that. So they want to share, but they do have those concerns about data security, right? Especially when we talk about cybersecurity. The number one thought people have is, oh, lock it down. But to a certain extent, you can have help and support to maintain your hardware, to maintain some of your software, even if it's with cooperative purchasing agreements, things like that, where IT Central can play a role to provide service without even coming close to seeing HIPAA data. Or having a few people who do work on that so they could conceivably have access to the data if they looked, having a few people certified to go maintain it. Right? I mean, we see this in the states that we work with, we see this in the counties and even the cities. It really comes down to opening up communication. And one of the key recommendations, which CEO Hayes actually started very well when we delivered our first draft reports, was this starts the conversation about what will help and what could be optimized so that everyone can focus on the other pieces. Because right now, these decentralized departments, they're doing it all, just like the county is. So if they can actually focus on doing what they're supposed to do well under their mission and mandate, that frees everyone up.
So Pharrell, do we have a policy? Is there a county policy, or can we mandate that the departments utilize the services of IT? Or I'm trying to think of how we got, because we're so far down this way that the pendulum never swings fast enough. It'll take a long time to get to some semblance of centralized IT. And so I don't know what the policy is. I actually never read any of our IT policies other than you sending out phishing emails that I know not to click out on.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent point, Supervisor. And the answer is probably there's a willingness, going back to Chris's response, there's a willingness on the part of departments and department heads to have a conversation. I don't know that there's a policy per se in place that prevents us from moving in that direction. But certainly that's something that needs to be examined as part of this process as we're talking about the governance structure. As you all know, obviously the county is a very complex organization with elected offices and appointed offices. And so there's some dynamic there that we just need to recognize and move forward from. But to answer your specific question, I'm not sure if there's a specific policy that prevents us from doing that. But certainly that'll be part of the conversation as we explore this topic further.
I'll just add one thing. Thank you very much, Raul. That we have had the benefit of using what we call an IT steering committee. So it's a cross section of department heads that do join our team and analyzing strategies around IT and so forth. I think over time, though, I think there's just a recognition that that structure is not going to keep pace with the rapidly evolving environment that you have in information technology. So we need a new structure.
Okay. And I would just think that, you know, duplicating efforts is not acceptable. As we talk about efficiencies all the time, trying to find efficiencies, and so I want to make sure that you have plenty of leeway, but it's important that all of the things we can bring in-house, as long as it's not costing departments more money, that it's not the opposite, then we should be doing that. We should be encouraging. I don't want to say that it's not acceptable for them to do it because I'm not familiar enough, but it should be highly encouraged from this board that we utilize the services that are available, infrastructure, licensing, everything else that comes with it. It just seems logical, for sure. Questions? Other questions? Seeing none, I'll open it up to the public. You remember the public? Okay, seeing none, bring it back for comments and/or action.
I'm just going to thank you guys, Paul, for doing this, and Chris and Raul. It just seems like a major task here. We're looking to, and we have a long ways to go to get to where we probably should be. But I always think of Jim DeMartini and his tubes and his computer. It seems like we've got computers out there with tubes in them that he used to always have. And so we're going to go from that to, anyway, a lot of work, but it has to be done, and I appreciate everybody's efforts, and they're going to be continued effort to make this happen. Thank you, guys.
Any other comments? Thank you, Chris. I appreciate this has been hanging out there. I know I've heard it from other departments for the last year, for sure. All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. Acceptance of the updated Stanislaus County IT assessment project. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. On to item 7.4, accept Stanislaus County Probation Department's SB 823, Department of Juvenile Justice Realignment Plan for budget year 2021, 2022, and 2022-2023. Probation Department. Leticia and Mark will be presenting.
I was going to say good afternoon, but good morning. Chairman Chiesa, members of the board, CEO Hayes, County Council Bowes, Mark Ferreira, the county's Chief Probation Officer, and it is my pleasure to present to you the Probation Department's Senate Bill 823 plan. Assisting me with today's presentation is Assistant Chief Probation Officer Leticia Ruano. And I'm going to start by briefly discussing the Department of Juvenile Justice, or DJJ. DJJ is operated by the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, or CDCR. CDCR is the same entity that operates our state prison system for adult offenders. DJJ was originally called the California Youth Corrections Authority and eventually the California Youth Authority, or CYA, before becoming the Department of Juvenile Justice in 2005. The purpose of the facilities was to accept long-term juvenile court commitments into these state-ran facilities for youthful offenders. The first youth committed under the Youth Corrections Authority Act, a 14-year-old for murder, occurred in 1942. The facility continued to accept youthful offenders from juvenile court commitments throughout the years, and in 1997 reached a peak population of 10,000 youth. In 2007, legislation in the form of SB 81 and AB 191 required that a majority of youthful offenders be kept in county juvenile facilities, such as juvenile halls. Instead, DJJ was reserved only for those adjudicated of the most serious offenses who had the most significant rehabilitative and treatment needs. Since 2007, only youth adjudicated of offenses found in Section 707B of the Welfare and Institutions Code or in Section 290.008 of the Penal Code could be committed to DJJ. The slide before you is a sampling of the slightly over 30 offenses found in Section 707B of the Welfare and Institutions Code and Section 290.008 of the Penal Code. Once adjudicated of one of those offenses, the court would then have to make a finding that less restrictive options, such as time in the local juvenile institutions and/or a release on juvenile probation, would not be in the youth's best interest, and a commitment to DJJ would better serve the youth's needs. Due to legislative changes, the population at DJJ dramatically decreased, and by August of 2020, the population totaled just 775 youthful offenders. The graph in front of you depicts the number of Stanislaus County youth that we have sent to DJJ each year since 2015. As you can see from the graph, in 2015, our juvenile court committed 11 youth, followed by 3 in 2016, 2 in 2017, 9 in 2018, and 8 in 2019 and 2020. As of today's date, we presently have 20 Stanislaus County youth detained at DJJ. The median length of stay for youth from Stanislaus County and DJJ is 23 months. The next slide in front of you is a graph showing a breakdown of the committing offenses sent to DJJ by year beginning in 2015 through 2020. As you can see, a majority of our youth were committed to DJJ following an adjudication for a violent offense. I would add that just this month, our juvenile court committed 2 to DJJ following an adjudication for murder. Lastly, this particular slide shows a breakdown by sex of our county's DJJ commitments since 2015. As you can see, with the exception of just 2 females, all of our youthful offenders we sent to DJJ are males. On September 30th, 2020, Governor Gavin Newsom signed Senate Bill 823, which dramatically altered California's juvenile justice system and realigned DJJ to the county level. On May 14th, 2021, Governor Newsom signed a trailer bill, Senate Bill 92, which provided additional clarity on SB 823 and becomes effective July 1st, 2021. SB 823 and 92 prohibits almost all new admissions to DJJ beginning on July 1st, 2021. The only exception that would allow a county to commit a youth to DJJ after July 1st, 2021 is if the district attorney's office files a motion at any point during the juvenile proceedings to transfer a youth from juvenile court to adult court. Instead, DJJ-like commitments will be housed locally in juvenile halls or commitment facilities to serve their long-term commitments. These local DJJ-like commitments will be known as secure track commitments. The requirements to receive a secure track commitment is the same as what was required of a DJJ-like commitment, which requires a youth 14 years of age or older to be adjudicated of at least one of the most serious offenses found in Section 707B of the Welfare and Institutions Code, or Section 290.008 of the Penal Code, and a finding by the court that other less restrictive options, such as a shorter stay in our juvenile institutions and or a release on juvenile probation, would not be in the youth's best interest. Once the juvenile court decides to commit a youth as a secure track commitment, the court will utilize an offense-based matrix developed by the Judicial Council of California in setting the baseline term of confinement. The baseline term of confinement will represent the time in custody necessary to meet the developmental and treatment needs of the youth and to prepare the youth for discharge from custody. The probation officer will subsequently be required to file an individualized rehabilitation plan for each youth within 30 days of the dispositional hearing. A progress review hearing will then be held at least every 6 months to evaluate the youth's progress in relation to the plan and whether the baseline term of confinement is to be modified. Once the baseline commitment has been completed, youth are then discharged on probation unless the court finds that the youth constitutes a substantial risk of imminent harm to others in the community. Those who constitute a substantial risk of imminent harm can be returned to the secure track for 1 additional year. SB 92 also requires the complete closure of all DJJ facilities on June 30th, 2023. Those housed in DJJ after July 1st, 2021 would remain at DJJ until their discharge date or until June 30th, 2023, at which point they would be transferred back to their committing counties. Counties will continue to be charged the current rate of $24,000 annually for youth who are committed to DJJ prior to July 1st, 2021 and remain at DJJ. Any county who commits a youth to DJJ after July 1st, 2021 will pay $125,000 annually per youth. Senate Bill 823 and 92 also adjusted the age a youthful offender could remain in local juvenile facilities. Prior to the passage of these bills, the oldest a youth could remain in juvenile county facilities was up to the age of 19 years old. The passage of these bills now allow us to house subjects whose case began in juvenile court up to the age of 25 or 2 years after the dispositional hearing, whichever occurs later. SB 823 required that the counties prepare for these long-term, potentially older youth by receiving a block grant allocation for appropriate housing and supervision. In order to be eligible for the funding, the Board of Supervisors shall consider the plan for rehabilitative housing and supervision of the secure track population. SB 823 requires the creation of a subcommittee of the Multi-Agency Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council, who would then create the plan. The subcommittee is statutorily required to consist of the following individuals: the Chief Probation Officer as chair, and one representative each from the District Attorney's Office, Public Defender's Office, the Department of Social Services, the Department of Mental Health, the County Office of Education or School District, one representative of the court, and no fewer than 3 community members who have experience providing community-based youth services and or youth advocates with direct involvement or expertise and knowledge in the juvenile justice system. On January 14th, 2021, the Multi-Agency Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council created the subcommittee as required by statute. The department heads on the slide in front of you from the DA's office, Public Defender's Office, CSA, BHRS, and the Stanislaus County Office of Education were chosen to serve on the subcommittee. Additionally, youth mentor Marian Martino, the Youth Navigation Director at the Center for Human Services, Emily Webster, and the Dean of Workforce Development and Community Lifelong Learning at Modesto Junior College, Vicki Trask, were chosen as the required 3 community members. The plan is statutorily required to have multiple elements, including a description of our facilities, programs, services, supervision, and reentry strategies for the secure track population. The request for proposal process was also initiated in an effort to contract with community-based organizations for services designed to address delinquent conduct, recidivism, and a successful reintegration back into the community through treatment, education, housing, programming, and services. On May 10th, 2021, the plan was formally completed by the subcommittee, and on May 19th, 2021, the plan was presented, adopted, and approved by the full body Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council. The plan is attached to today's board agenda item and contains all of the elements required by statute. The request for proposals process also concluded and resulted in Leaders in Community Alternatives, or LCA, being selected as the proposal that met the goals and priorities to treat the secure track population. LCA was included in the subcommittee's plan and is an organization that will incorporate evidence-based practices and curricula to create high-quality programs, providing the necessary tools and support for youth to change behavior and permanently break the cycle of addiction, crime, and incarceration. All LCA staff are properly trained, and each youth will be provided a case manager who will devise an individualized service plan and provide case management services. LCA will also include evidence-based curricula such as cognitive behavioral therapy, thinking for a change, aggression replacement training, and substance abuse groups. Employment classes and services will also be provided. Each curriculum component will be the basis of group classes or individual training provided in juvenile hall. The plan also includes details related to our existing relationship with Modesto Junior College, who provides college coursework to students who have completed their high school education. The department will expand upon that existing partnership to provide services as part of the My Next Step program. This program will provide assessment, career counseling, and vocational program coursework. Additional supports are built in to provide for 30, 60, and 90-day follow-up with youth upon their release from custody. For those who have yet to complete their high school education, the Stanislaus County Office of Education will continue to provide educational services. The Stanislaus County Office of Education will also provide career technical education after securing a partnership with Patterson Professional Truck Driving School, in which youth will learn to operate a semi-truck via an advanced simulator machine. Students are required to attend a 1-hour class 5 days a week for an entire school year. In addition to this, students will need to log 30 hours on the simulator, which will be located inside the juvenile facilities. Upon successful completion of the year-long course and 30 hours on the simulator, youth will earn their learner's permit. The truck driving industry is currently short 50,000 drivers, and it is believed to increase to 75,000 in the next 2 years. We will also develop a de-escalation room, have additional volunteer supports, along with reentry supports for the population. The slide in front of you shows our average daily population in juvenile hall since 2015. As you can see, we have seen a dramatic decline in our overall population in the facilities. The decline that has resulted in our juvenile institutions has resulted in empty housing units. We will house our secure track population in one of the empty housing units, Unit 7, located inside the juvenile institutions. This particular housing unit has the capacity to serve 20 youth. If the population expands to more than 20, we have the ability to house additional secure track youth in other units throughout the facility. Section 1991, Subdivision A, Subdivision 1 of the Welfare and Institutions Code states that each county's block grant allocations are formula-based. 30% of the allocation is based on the number of youth committed to DJJ as of December 31st, 2018, June 30th, 2019, and December 31st, 2019. 50% is based on the number of youth adjudicated for certain violent and serious felony crime categories per 2018 juvenile data, and 20% of the allocation consists of all the individuals in the county between the ages of 10 and 17 in 2020. The Probation Department's estimated budget year 21-22 allocation is $565,000. We are recommending that $562,000 be directed to contracts with LCA and Modesto Junior College, and the remaining balance be placed in reserves. The Probation Department's estimated budget year 2022-2023 allocation is $1.674 million. Of this amount, we are recommending that $493,000 be directed to contracts with LCA and MGC, with the remainder placed in reserves to address gaps in services and to account for unanticipated expenses. Today, we will be asking you to adopt the following staffing recommendations that you see on the slide in front of you. Number one, we're asking that you accept the Senate Bill 823 DJJ realignment plan. Number two, authorize the use of funding from the SB 823 allocation for contracts with LCA and Modesto Junior College for budget years 21-22 and 22-23. And lastly, we are asking that you direct the Stanislaus County Auditor Controller to increase estimated revenue and appropriations as detailed in the budget journal attached to the board agenda item. And with that, we are open for questions.
Easy, easy, easy. Questions?
Thanks, Mark, and Leticia, thanks for doing this. Help me with the budget here again. I'm still having a hard time trying to figure out. So the first year, it looks like we're going to be allocated $565,000. Is that right?
That's right.
And this is with regard to, if I understand it right, there's 8 individuals currently at DJJ from our county that will be coming back here. Is that right? Am I?
No, I'm sorry. We have 20 currently at DJJ right now.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I looked at one of those graphs and it showed 8.
Yeah, it does. It's, the graph shows the number of youth committed to DJJ by year, and I think
Okay.
it had it one of the
Okay,
years.
so cumulative, we have 20.
But,
Okay.
but the medium length of stay is 23 months. So that's why it shows, well, 1 year we committed 8,
Got it,
and we're at
okay.
20.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mark, just to clarify, though, those 20 are not returning to Stanislaus County right now.
That's correct.
That's an important clarification. They will remain at DJJ to complete the remainder of their sentence. I don't know if you call it a sentence. but
Commitment.
Their commitment, yeah. Until 2023. If their commitment goes beyond that, then they would return theoretically to Stanislaus County. And I think the operative issue for budget is that we're projecting 5 to 8 youth in our community, in your facility, in this upcoming fiscal year. Is that about what I read or understood?
That's correct. So the way this is going to work is, come July 1st, essentially DJJ intake will stop. So we can no longer send any DJJ youth to DJJ unless there's very limited exceptions.
Okay.
And so moving forward, if a youth receives a DJJ-like commitment after July 1st, we will then begin housing them in our juvenile institutions. And then once June 30th, 2023 rolls around, all DJJ facilities, there's 4 of them, all of them will close, and any remaining youth who aren't discharged prior to that date will come back to us.
Okay. And so beginning July 1st, they're going to, for the ones that are still there, they're going to charge us $24,000 a year.
That's right.
And will that come out of this $565,000? Will that go towards that? Or I guess I'm still...
No.
We're already paying for that as it is. Is that more than what we're currently paying for?
That's the current rate, and it's been this way for some time, is $24,000 annually.
Okay, so that's already built into our budget as it is.
Yeah, so the $562,000 that we budgeted for this upcoming budget year, those are for treatment and services for anyone who's going to receive a DJJ-like commitment after July 1st.
Okay.
And we're anticipating, what we've seen is, on average, in one of the slides that we showed you, just on an annual basis since 2015, we see roughly about 7 that receive that type of commitment. Now, it fluctuates. It could be 8, it could be 9, it could be 2. And we also are a little bit unclear about what our juvenile court's response is going to be related to this law change, and whether our courts are going to be more comfortable just committing our youth to our juvenile commitment facility for a long-term juvenile court type of commitment without giving them one of these DJJ-like commitments locally, or whether they're going to really step it up and commit more youth and give more youth a DJJ-like commitment. So we're unsure how this is going to exactly work moving forward.
Okay. So a lot going on there. And so it sounds like, so the 565 or the $1.6 million is all going towards programming for these youth, is the plan?
At this point, yes. I think there's a lot of unanticipated possibilities. For instance, I showed one of the slides showed that we have, can you go back to the slide 4 or 5? Go forward a couple. 6. So you can see here, since 2015, we've had 2 girls receive a DJJ-like commitment. So I think in our minds, what makes the most sense is to set up programs and services geared towards males. It would be very, very difficult to set up a program for females, and we know from evidence, the evidence that females have their own very unique needs and need their own programs and services, and so with only having 2 girls committed to DJJ since 2015, I don't know if it makes much sense to set up a program for females. So I think where I'm going with this is that it might make more sense to partner, and we've had a lot of discussions through CPOC. It might make more sense to set up a regionalized contract with another county if we receive one of these DJJ-like commitments for a female. It might make more sense to send that girl to a partner county who could better treat that female offender, as opposed to trying to stand up a female program locally. So that's an example of an anticipated cost. If you can go back to the offense one. The other one is that since 2015, we haven't had any sex offenders who have received a DJJ-like commitment. And we know also from the evidence that sex offenders are very unique and require their own set of treatment needs. They have their own treatment needs. So I think potentially there's going to be a large amount of costs associated with potentially bringing in a psychologist or some other treatment organization to do that. Or, again, it might make more sense to partner with another county to house that particular youth and provide them with sex offender treatment somewhere else.
Okay, so kind of your gut feeling with this thing, I always go back to AB 109 when we, brought people back to our county. So here we are going to bring these kids back to our county or no longer send them. You feel like we can do a better job? We're going to make them, I always feel we used to send people off to become better bad guys in state prisons. And so now maybe the same concept here. We're going to hopefully be able to help these kids more here at the local level. Anyway, tell me what you think. What's your gut tell you? Is this a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a really good thing. I think exactly to what you said. I think we can do a better job here locally. I think keeping them tied into this community where they can have visitation with their own children if they have any, or with their own family members, makes the most sense. And then we also have these relationships with some of these volunteers and service providers that can provide them with services and treatment and then help them re-enter society. And I think we can do that much better as opposed to what was happening at the state level.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Perfect. Other comments? So one thing I want to ask on the 20 up to 25 years old, you've got some very young people in the juvenile commitment facility. That seems like a big age difference. Any concern there?
Yes, I do have a lot of concerns there. I have concerns with potentially having 12-year-old youth in the same facility as someone who's 25. That's probably I think the biggest concerns that we've had, and we've had a lot of discussions about that internally. I think, it depends on how large our population is who receive this DJJ-like commitment. I think if we have a significant number, the ideal situation would be to separate younger youth from much older youth. I don't think we're going to have good outcomes if we, pair a 23-year-old adult with, some kid who is 15. So ideally, I think we would want to separate those two individuals. So yeah, it is a concern.
And probation, CPOC has not had any conversations about trying to transfer people because services are available in adult detention, obviously, when they get to be a certain age. Because I'm struggling to see the benefit of a 24-year-old being in a juvenile commitment facility under any circumstance.
Yeah, I think it is prohibited to send a youth who is in custody on a juvenile court commitment to an adult facility. So the way the law works, I think our hands are kind of tied there. There is some options to send a youth who is still pending charges, who might be pending charges as an adult, to transfer that individual to adult court. But for someone who receives a DJJ-like commitment, our hands are mostly tied.
What's our capacity? I saw average daily count was 62 kids, you said right now. What's our capacity? I can't remember, Mark.
We have 218 available beds in our juvenile facilities.
So hopefully there's the ability to try to separate, I guess, unless
The,
it gets
the big, yeah, the biggest challenge is just staffing with us. We have a lot of vacancies right now, but we certainly have the room and space to house this population.
Okay.
Perfect. I guess I'll open it up for the public really quick. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for comments and/or action.
Motion approved.
We have a motion to approve. This requires a 4/5 vote.
I'll second it.
And a second. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for coming in. Lots of change. So we're going to move back really quick since the chairman forgot to vote on the cancellation of the public hearing. We're going back to
6.2.
6.2.
Yes.
We got so many pages today. 6.2, cancellation of the public hearing regarding the cannabis. So
Can I make a motion to cancel the public hearing?
Thank you very
On
much.
6.2.
Second withrow.
A second.
Supervisor Condon with a big thank you too. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I do apologize. We are going to move on to correspondence.
This board has received a copy of the Gallo Center for the Arts budget for fiscal year 2021-2022, including leases, prices, concessions, fees, and the schedule for the 2021-2022 season.
Refer to the Chief Executive Officer.
This board has received a letter from the Keys Community Services District regarding the resignation of William Alexander from their board of directors.
Acknowledge receipt of letter.
This board has received a letter from the Riverdale Park Track Community Services District regarding chemicals in their water system exceeding notification levels.
Refer to the Department of Environmental Resources.
This board has received a letter regarding a petition for temporary change involving the transfer of 100,000 acre-feet of water between the Oakdale and South San Joaquin Irrigation Districts and the San Luis Delta Mendota Water Authority.
Refer to the Department of Environmental Resources.
This board has received the claims as noted on the agenda.
Acknowledge receipt of claims and refer to the Chief Executive Office. Are there any Board of Supervisor reports?
I just got a few things.
Okay.
Looking forward to serve as the primary member at the Consolidated Emergency Dispatch. I know we have some issues that we're going to have to deal with, but everybody keeps their eye on what's best for the community as a whole. I think we'll get to where we're going. Last week I toured Fleet Services. I'd just like to thank Brad and Dan for their time. They do a lot of good work out there and very busy. Last Wednesday, I attended the first MAC meeting at the Empire Library, a beautiful little meeting room. Although we didn't have a quorum at the time, we had a good meeting anyway. This last weekend, I'd like to wish Oakdale 150 years. Happy birthday. I got to celebrate with them for a little bit and represent the board during the parade. Let's see, in mobile office hours in Oakdale, July 14th from 1 to 3 at the House of Beef located at 201 North 3rd Street.
Can we come?
Absolutely.
House of Beef, I love it. That's great. Is that all?
That's it.
Anything? Nope. Nope. And I just want to jump on to what Supervisor Condit said. We are switching the primary and the alternate, moving the alternate position regarding the 911 consolidated. And Buck has a ton of experience in with regards to dispatch with his previous life. And so I'm very confident. And it just, being the chairman, we had talked about this early on, and get him up to speed just a little bit, 6 months in. But it takes a lot of time. That's a very, very important assignment. And so taking that off of my plate will probably make me a better chairman and make me forget to vote on items. So I appreciate you doing that. Okay. We do have, oh no, let's go to legislative fiscal management.
Just real quick, and for clarification, I'm not sure that we could have one other board member join Mr. Condit at the House of Beef without it being a quorum. So please watch out for that. You might have to argue over who gets to have that tri-tip sandwich.
We can stagger the time.
Oh, okay. There you go. I wanted to let you know that I think you've all read news reports that the governor and the legislature have announced state budget deals yesterday, so we're clearly still digging through that. I will acknowledge, though, however, the process, This is a very different state budget process in which it's being doled out in sections, and we still have some issues that remain on the table that we're not sure where they're going to go in this state budget. So we'll definitely report out to you at our next meeting. I also want to acknowledge that we did send some advocacy letters related to issues in and around the state budget over the last couple of weeks, specifically around issues of psychiatric health facilities and how our county facility operates. That was one of the specific issues, as well as the financial support and penalty structure that the state is talking about under counties' in-home supportive services programs. So that concludes my report today. Thank you.
And just so you know, as soon as we leave this meeting, I'm going to be on the phone talking about those issues with our local electeds, because some of them have a pretty punitive effect, trying to transfer costs and become essentially unfunded mandates from the state of California. So thank you. Announcement, we are having our annual fireworks celebration at Woodward Reservoir Saturday, July 3rd at 9:30 p.m. and that is on 26 Mile Road, north of Oakdale, which is exciting to be back to a post-COVID. If you've never been out there or in the area, try and stay away if you're not going to Woodward, because it backs up a couple of miles back on 26 Mile Road. And we do have a closed session.
Yes. We have closed session this afternoon. We have, first item is conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, and the agency negotiators and the unions are noted in the agenda. I do not expect a report out on that item. Conference with legal counsel is our second item. Existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, subdivision D1, and regarding the matter of the County of Stanislaus, that's FPPC case number 17/325. I do anticipate to report out on that one. Our third item is a conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4. That's one matter there, and I do not expect a report out.
Perfect. And it would be appropriate to ask if there are any comments, public comments. Seeing none, if there's nothing else, we'll go to the order. This meeting is adjourned.